get going.
Okay, we're recording now.
Excellent. I'll call to order this Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Pleased to be starting another year with you all, and I do want to congratulate those members of the commission and welcome back those members of the commission who were reelected, and also to give a very warm welcome to our newly elected members of the commission, Commissioners Ford, Harrison, Pitt, and Leahy. I'm pleased to be working with you. I also want to welcome back our talented staff, Jim and Emmeline. The first order of business is the minutes, and I believe we can call them together unless there's a reason to call them separately. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Very good. Is there a second? I see Commissioner Noonan. So a motion to approve by Commissioner Francis and seconded by Commissioner Noonan. The minutes look to me to be in order from both the regular and the special meeting. Commissioner Francis, any comments?
No.
Commissioner Noonan?
I do not.
Very good. The motion is to approve the minutes of November 9th and November 16th, 2021. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes from those dates are approved unanimously.
Chairman Brahman, this is Alexis Harrison. I will be abstaining from this vote because I was not present or a commissioner at those meetings.
Very good. And I assume that the same goes for other commissioners who were not present for those meetings. The minutes are approved with unanimously of those commissioners voting who were present. The next item of business is our organizational meeting. The first item is the election of officers. The first officer who we must elect this evening is the chair of the commission. I will open the floor to nominations, but I do have a nomination to make myself. And I nominate Commissioner Tommy Noonan. Do I have a second? Very good. Commissioner Harrison, I saw first. Are there any other nominations? All right, so I would just like to say that, Commissioner Noonan, Tommy, I've gotten to work with you the last 2 years. You've proven yourself to me to be a tough questioner, a careful and thoughtful deliberator, and somebody who can run a good meeting. And I'm pleased to nominate you for the office of chair, and I think you would serve with distinction.
Thank you, Commissioner Brayman and Commissioner Harrison. I would happy to serve. Be honored to be elected as such. So thank you for your consideration and your kind words.
Commissioner Harrison?
No, I echo what you've said. I've not been a commissioner with Mr. Noonan, but I've watched him in action and really believe that he'll be a great leader for our commission for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. So all in favor of Commissioner Tommy Noonan serving as chair, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Commissioner Noonan, you've been unanimously elected as chair. And now, I or you have the duty of calling for nominations for vice chair.
And thank you very much for voting for me as chair. I do really appreciate it. So the next up is nominations for the vice chair. I will open it up. I myself too have a nomination. I would like to nominate Commissioner Lenny Brayman to continue in his role. Is there anybody that second that nomination? Commissioner Levy? Any other nominations? I get to echo Commissioner Brayman's nice words to me with very similar sentiments. We've worked very well for 2 years. You've served the position with honor. You yourself has been very thoughtful, a very strong advocate for Fairfield. You will serve. I have no doubt you will serve well in the years to come. And I like to think that we're continuing a good tradition in this board, in this commission, as quasi-judicial commission in this town, sharing leadership. I think it's a good example to set for the rest of the town, that we work so well with each other. Because at the end, once the election is somewhat over, I mean, I don't know about you, I kind of forget who's the Republican and who's the Democrat. We kind of just move on as individuals serving Fairfield. Lenny, you certainly embody that as well. So I'm very happy and pleased to nominate you as vice chair.
Thank you, Tommy, for your very kind and very apt words. Really appreciate that.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes, I'd like to echo those sentiments. Having worked with Commissioner Brayman for the last 2 years, I have great respect for his insight, his familiarity with the zoning law. He seems to always have a case or two at his fingertips. And as with the precedent that we set in prior years, I think it's important, and echo your thoughts with respect to this commission is above politics. That's not the issue. I think all of us are here to do the best that we can in terms of the zoning and development issues in the town. And once we start a session, we're all in here with one goal, and that's to each of us do what we think is best for the town of Fairfield. And with that, I heartily recommend that we elect Commissioner Brayman as our vice chairman.
Thank you, Steve.
With that, we can move to the vote unless there's any other, anything else you'd like to say about anybody else. But all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Vice Chair Brayman, you've been reelected unanimously. Again, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll move on to secretary. I have someone in mind, but seeing as though I've had my turn, is there any nominations for secretary? Commissioner Braun?
Yes, I nominate Meg Francis to be secretary. She's been secretary in the past, and I think she'll continue to do a great job.
Great. I will second that nomination. That's the person I had in mind. Meg, you've been great on this board, and you serve willingly and faithfully and loyally, and I'm very pleased to that you'll be running, that you've if you agree to run as secretary, that you would do a great job as you have in the past. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Commissioner Francis as secretary, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Commissioner Francis, you've been reelected as secretary unanimously.
All right.
Thank you for your service. So moving on, still in our executive session, letter C, what is it? 1C, 2181 Blackrock Turnpike, request for an interpretation regarding digital display on electronic vehicle charging station.
Yeah, before we get there, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, we need to go back to item 2.
Scheduled meetings.
Vote on the scheduled meetings, please.
My apologies, I did miss that. So moving backwards to schedule meetings, which is item B2. That was included as an attachment a few days ago, I believe. Or no, excuse me, as part of the agenda.
Yeah, we just need to, by the end of the month, file with the town clerk our scheduled meetings for the upcoming year. We've attached that to your agenda package. It's the standard second and fourth Tuesday of each month, with the exception of November and December, which is only the second Tuesday of the month. And you're able to add other dates to that on an as-needed basis throughout the year. But it's the standard calendar that we have put forth for your consideration.
I didn't see an issue myself, though I think like many, it's hard to see a few months in advance. May I have a motion on this? Commissioner Braun,
So moved.
move to accept.
Yes, move to accept.
Commissioner Harrison, second. Any other discussion, any issues with dates that they can see in advance? Anything to, that catches anybody's eye about the dates? You can always add and I guess reschedule sometimes, but at least add at the very least. Having not seeing anybody, all those in favor, the motion is to adopt or accept the schedule as presented. All those in favor, please raise your hands or say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Looks to be accepted unanimously. Next item, again, 2181 Blackrock Turnpike. Request for an interpretation regarding digital display on electronic vehicle charging station.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Went for the record. This address is the site of the Gap Old Navy Shopping Center on Blackrock Turnpike. Volta Electric recently installed 2 electric car charging stations in the parking area of this center. These stations are proposed to each have a 9 square foot video display. It's 4 feet tall by 2.25 feet wide, 9 square feet total. The display allows, by allowing these ads to be displayed, it underwrites the installation cost and the electric charge so that customers or shoppers can park and charge for free. We initially indicated to Volta that we thought that the video displays constituted signs as we define that in our regulations, and therefore they wouldn't be permitted because they would exceed the number of permitted ground signs on the property. They have been very cooperative. They have not turned these things on or operational at this point and are seeking a review to see if you concur with our initial assessment. Volta is requesting the interpretation, and they make the argument that the screen should not be considered signs as they're really an accessory use to the charging kiosks and not intended to be visible from off-site. The images displayed on the screen are static. However, the image does change approximately every 8 to 10 seconds. There's no audio component to this. Section 29.5 of our regulations defines a sign as every sign, illustration, lettering device, insignia, or display, however made, displayed, painted, supported, or attached, used for the purpose of advertisement, identification of public publicity, or notice of any kind when located out of doors in the view of the general public. So that's really the question here. I did late this afternoon, you may or may not have had a chance to see it. I emailed you 2 images or photographs of an existing installation in Milford. We can pull that up if you need to see it. But really, it's the question of whether or not you consider these charging stations to be a sign, regulated as a sign, or whether it doesn't fall into that definition and therefore permitted. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, for the sake of discussion. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Okay. So may I have a motion so we can start discussion on this matter? Commissioner Braun,
Motion to interpret the item as a sign or not a sign.
which one? As a sign or not as a sign?
It's not a sign. This is sort of a declaratory ruling. We're not approving it. We're just declaring whether it's a sign or not within our regulations.
Correct. I'm looking for some guidance for you guys as to whether or not you agree or disagree that we ought to regulate these as signs.
So the
I'm
motion is
Prove it is not a sign then.
as not a sign. Okay. Commissioner Levy? Second? Okay. Commissioner Braun, if you can please start us off.
Just looking at it, to me, it more resembles a place where you would fill your tank with gas. It's smaller actually than that. And the information on it appears not to be for promotional purposes, but it's informational purposes so people can charge up their car, kind of like, going to the gas pump. So my opinion is that it should not be declared to be a sign.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, it'd be my position that it also that it is not to be construed as a sign. The advertising, if we'll call it that, is basically incidental to the purpose, which is not to advertise or attract the public to any particular event, site, or sale, but rather as a revenue means that electric vehicle owners can charge up for free and thereby not have to use a tank of gas. So to that extent, I would say it's basically incidental. It's comparable to when I go to the Shell station, and while I'm gassing up, I have to watch the various videos that appear on the pump, and I don't think anybody is driving by on the post road and observing and being influenced by what occurs at the pump there. And similarly, I would say that that is the case here, where it would only really be visible to the individual who's charging their vehicle, and as such, it's incidental to that customer. Also, it is, I would say that it's not there for purposes of influencing the general public, but solely again as an incidental revenue generator which supports a good cause. So as such, I would deem it not to be a sign because it doesn't serve those promotional purposes or directional purposes, which I would equate with a normal definition of a sign.
Somebody ask a question. I see Commissioner Harrison next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question. I don't know who to give this to, but is Volta, that's a for-profit entity, I assume?
Staff, do you know? Mr. Wendt, do you know? I assume it is.
Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I presume so. The reason for the advertising is to, support if they didn't have the advertising, they likely wouldn't be doing it. But it also allows the end user to not have to pay a fee. So while I don't know for certain, my presumption is yes.
And does Volta have any other stations in Fairfield, or would this be its first?
This would be its first, but likely not the last. So if you're inclined to agree with the motion, which I don't quarrel with by any means, regardless of how this commission decides, I think it may be time, given, I think, the expansion and prevalence of electric vehicles, that we perhaps craft some regulations to give users or installers some guidance, so we're not doing it on a one-off basis. But I appreciate the thoughts and have no quarrel with what's being proposed here. But even if you were to agree that it is a sign, I think the time is right for us to craft some regulations to bring to you in the future to clarify maybe some certain design ramifications or specifications for future reference. But in this case, I think this is a pretty innocuous installation.
Commissioner Brayman?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Wendt. I would tend to agree with you, and probably it is time for this commission to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brayman?
Yeah, I agree with those who have stated that this doesn't fall comfortably within the the plain meaning of a sign, or within our definition of a sign as a defined term. And I think the audience is not the general public. It's not in view of the general public. The audience is the user of the charging station. So I think that it doesn't make sense to regulate this as a sign. I do agree, with Mr. Wendt that it is time that we consider a regulation that would more directly apply to these kinds of installations. I do think that the town and the state have expressed a policy in favor of electric vehicles and clean energy, sustainable energy, and I think that electric vehicles are only going to become more numerous. But I do believe that this this display should not be regulated as a sign at this location, and if there's new regulations that we impose, then they will apply to future sites and future installations.
Any other commissioners? I had a few thoughts, but any before me? Commissioner Francis? I think you're on mute.
To Commissioner Levy, is this advertising as small as the one on the gas pump? It looked to me pretty large and substantial. The gas pump one is about 4 by 6, isn't it? 4 by 8, maybe?
Yeah, I can address that if you will. They are larger. These displays are larger than the typical gas pump video screen, but taken as the whole, I don't think the unit itself is larger than a gas pump that's tends to be branded with, in addition to the video screen, they tend to have branding of the gas company and various other ads that might be on it. So, that's why I'm suggesting that we might craft some regulations that would put some design specification in place as to perhaps the maximum size of a display screen, or minimum distance from the street, to ensure, like in this case, that it's not generally visible from the public street. It's intended to be viewed by the end user, not the general public.
And my other thought is, as electric cars are going to come into being heavily used in the next decade or so, I don't think tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of these all over parking lots. And they're big, and that screen is big.
So I tend to agree with the sentiments that this is not a sign, though I will state that if we had thought this was a sign, we'd have probably ample justification for that. But I agree. I don't think this is a sign or needs to be considered a sign. My initial thought was a condition of approval, which is I don't think appropriate in this, and maybe something to consider for regulations is, if possible, not have these facing the street or even sidewalks. I don't think that's appropriate for this. Something to consider going forward, if it's even practical at all, depending on parking lot configurations to begin with. This is far back enough, and I don't think it's going to catch a driver's eye at all on that post road, Blackrock Turnpike. So I echo those sentiments and it sounds like everybody's on board with the idea of approving the motion, which is to consider this not a sign. Any other comments? Commissioner Braun.
Just real quick. So we're declaring this application with these proposed signs as not a sign. That doesn't commit us to any further applications on other EV, whether it's Volta or somebody else, somewhere else on some other property, correct?
Correct. We are, and what I think I'm hearing is, in this case, and key to this is because in this particular case, it isn't visible from the public street generally, and we will go forward based on this discussion and start putting together a regulation that might give better guidance to you and to end users, not only into when they want to do it. There may be instances where we want to require a certain level of EV charging, in larger parking lots. Right now, it's kind of market driven. We're seeing the larger residential apartment buildings install them because their tenants, it's an amenity for their tenants that they feel important. In the shorter term, I think it'll be larger centers, not the smaller ones, that are looking to do this. But the short answer to your question is yes, this is an isolated case in this instance, but at the same time, I think it begs the issue that we really need to take a closer look at this and craft some regulations to present to you for future applications.
Yes, we don't generally set precedent for these things, but I think we are, if they're asking for an interpretation, we are kind of hinting where we go in general. I think Commissioner Levy's detailed analysis gives everybody the impression of what we are looking at as to what is a sign, what is not a sign. So if tomorrow somebody comes with a 10-foot thing that's right on the post road that's supposed to be for electric vehicles, that I think we've at least given enough people the notice that that's not something I think we would consider some as on par with what we've done here. But I think Mr. Wendt's point is important, that we should be, and I appreciate his comments, that we should be having regulations so we can properly advise the public of what we'd be looking towards in the future. But as of right now, I think what we have in front of us does not meet the sign regulations. With that,
Oh, I just have one more question.
Sure.
Apologies if I missed this. Mr. One, how many signs is Volta requesting at this location?
There are 2 kiosks,
Just the 2, okay.
2 parking spaces where these are installed, so a total of 2.
Okay. Do they plan on doing more, or is it's just the 2?
They're not proposing any more at this location, but based on what the feedback they get tonight, they may be considering other installations. But based on what I've heard, that helps us going forward, and we will be back to you hopefully in the not too distant future with the proposal.
Okay.
so the motion is that the kiosks at issue are not signs. So a vote in favor of that is again saying that the kiosks are not signs. With that, all in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Don't see any. So the motion passes unanimously.
I appreciate the guidance. It is a bit of an unusual request, but I appreciate the thoughtful consideration of the commission here.
Thank you. Next item is 5545 Park Avenue, review of revised plans in accordance with conditions of approval. Mr. Wendt?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, back in August 24th of this year, the commission approved an application for a 6-story, 120-unit affordable housing development pursuant to Section 8-30G, the statutes for this site. And just to refresh your recollection, this is, if you're traveling north on Park Avenue, this it would be the last parcel on the left before you get to the Merritt Parkway. So it's south of the Parkway, directly opposite the entrance, the northbound entrance ramp at a traffic light. Condition number 1 of that approval required that revised plans be submitted to you for your review and approval, indicating 3 things. Firstly, that the building be reduced by 2 stories in height and limited to 4 occupied stories. Secondly, that the exterior building materials be modified with the color scheme that more closely blends with the surrounding landscape. And 3, that a revised landscaping plan submitted to provide screening of the building as viewed from the Merritt Parkway. So the applicant has submitted revised plans that are reflective of those conditions. The building has been reduced by 2 stories and is reduced from 120 units to 100 units. The 120 unit plan had a total of 180 bedrooms. This revised plan has a total of 136 bedrooms. The overall building height has been reduced by 20 feet from 64.5 feet along the frontage of Park Avenue to 44.5 feet, and from over 77 feet at the rear to 57 feet. They've modified the exterior materials from a red brick and composite panels that were kind of grayish blue tones to a more brown brick and cream colored stucco finish. They have reduced the parking from 191 units to, I'm sorry, spaces, 191 spaces to 160. And this reduction was achieved by reducing the size of the lower level parking garage back to 31 spaces. You may recall there was some discussion about the original 80 unit plan that this commission saw and that the Wetlands Agency saw. And when it expanded to 120 units, that lower level parking garage was expanded. Now, this 100 unit plan reduces that lower level parking back to its original size of 31 spaces that was originally proposed. The same parking ratio that was approved for the 120 unit plan is in place here. There's 1.6 spaces per unit, and that was the ratio of the 120 unit plan. It's 101.6 spaces per unit, or 1.2 spaces per bedroom. We did late this afternoon, I probably within the last half an hour, I emailed to you, I don't know if you saw it, and you may recall that these conditions were crafted largely in response to the concerns that were raised by the Merritt Parkway Conservancy and their concern about the impact on the historic resources of the Merritt Parkway. And Attorney Green, on behalf of the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, issued a letter this afternoon that, I'm sorry, wasn't in your packet, but just emailed to you a short time ago, essentially concurring that the Conservancy has been in long discussions with the applicant, and they concur, are satisfied with these revisions as meeting the concerns as they articulated to this commission at the public hearing. So that is all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman. Is subject to questions, but the judgment here is whether or not these modifications meet the conditions of approval as were articulated by this commission back in August.
Mr. One, didn't we have another condition about drainage, that the testing be done first?
Yes, that condition still stands, and that condition will have to be met regardless of the changes to these drawings. These are just in response to the first condition of approval that required revisions to the plans. But you're absolutely correct that further testing will have to be done before building permits will be issued.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. May I have a motion on this, please? Commissioner Levy.
I move to find that the revised plans meet our conditions of approval.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? May I have a second? Is that Commissioner Francis or Commissioner Francis seconds? Thank you. Commissioner Levy, please.
Yeah, I reviewed the revised plans. To my eye, they do meet the conditions that we imposed on this 830G application. Those conditions were imposed largely in response to community concerns, as well as the issues raised by the Merritt Parkway Conservancy. And I think they've met those conditions, and would like to commend the developer and the Conservancy for working together to address the concerns of the community, as well as the concerns of the Conservancy, while at the same time we will get the benefit of more affordable housing, which is so desperately needed in this town. So on that basis, I would move to find that these conditions, these revised plans meet the above conditions and should be approved.
Commissioner Francis?
Yes, I concur with Commissioner Levy's findings. It's been much improved, and I'm glad that the drainage test is still ongoing, because that was a real concern of the neighbors on Weeping Willow. So things seem to be falling into place, and I'm pleased to support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun?
I don't see anything in the packet. I have a question first for Jim Wendt. The parking. The original application was for 90 units, then it went up to 120, then it went down to 100. So it still has 10 more than the original one. And I'm concerned about the lower level parking. You're saying that the 31 in the lower level was increased when it went to 120 from 90. I forget what it was increased to, but it was like doubled. And my concern is, as I mentioned at the hearing, that they're blasting or doing significant excavation into the hillside to create that underground parking. So it started at 31 when it was 90 units in the lower level. then I think it must have doubled, as I recall, when it went up to 120 units to make the 191 spaces. I don't remember what the lower level was. Now, the third iteration is going from 90 units to 100 units, and it's going from whatever the original parking spots are to 160. It must be more than the original because the number of units is more than the original by 10. But so how are they getting only 31, which is the same as the original, if there's 10 more units, and it's the same ratio of parking spaces per unit as on the original one? Do you understand what I was trying to say?
I do. It's a bit of a mixed bag there, but let me see if I understand your question, but let me answer it this way. You are correct. First of all, there was never an approval for that previous plan. The 90 unit plan was denied by the commission. It was a regulation amendment, not an 8-30G application. The 120 unit plan, you are correct that the lower level garage had 61 spaces proposed and now is 31. That 31 is the same number of spaces as the original 90 unit plan. My comparison in the parking ratio was not to the original plan that would never got approval by this commission, but to the 120 unit plan. So they had 191 spaces for 120 units. Now it's 160 spaces for 100 units. So that ratio of 1.6 spaces per unit remains the same. That wasn't a comparison to the predecessor application to that. My comparison to the predecessor application was only with respect to the lower level parking garage, which is now back to the same footprint that originally was, not expanded, which I know was a concern in the 120 unit plan.
So it's hard to tell from the sort of cross-section drawing. I remember I compared. I wish are we allowed to have anyone from the applicant?
Well, I can, if Emily can pull up the first plan, I don't know if you can, the architectural plan first floor shows, if you have it, it has the underground garage showing 31 spaces, and then the space.
Is that the looking from the right side or left side? It doesn't really, just so I could, let's see.
Sure, one more page, that page, oh, scroll, okay. So if you can see this page, Park Avenue is to your right, the Merritt Parkway would be on the top of the page. The lower level garage access from the rear, you can see the spaces that are under there. In the 120 unit plan, that middle section of the plan that's just now showing footings for the building also was part of that parking garage. So if you're looking at the footprint of this plan, there's kind of three kind of polygons here. The one to the right is the underneath the main building. The center polygon was what was the expanded underground parking, which will now not be expanded underground parking. And then where you see the underbuilding parking to the left was the original footprint of the underground parking in the earliest proposal.
So the one you're showing on the screen is from the first proposal for 90 units that we didn't approve.
This is their plan for 100 units, but the extent of the underground lower level parking is the same.
So even though there's 10 more units, so you're saying the parking ratio is a little bit maybe less than what was in the original one.
Yeah, I'm not comparing the parking ratio to the plan that was not approved by the commission. I'm only comparing the parking ratio to the 120 unit plan.
Okay, because another point that I was concerned about that I raised in the last hearing was there's no valid wetlands permit, and the permit condition, I voted no because there's no valid wetlands permit. The wetlands permit that had been done for the 90 unit plan had a very clear prohibition against, well, it said if the site plan changes, it has to go back to the agency for approval. Never went back to the agency. And so in my opinion, there's no wetlands permit, and that concerns me because I don't know what's going on under the ground that could affect water. And this does drain in more or less into Mill River.
Commissioner Braun, I mean, we don't need to I think, litigate or discuss that. I mean, that's kind of outside the purview of what we're doing now. But I will say, as I understand it, and Mr. Wentz can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems as if they've almost satisfied your concern, because now the parking level on the bottom is back to what it was and what the inland wetlands permit was for. Is that a somewhat accurate statement, Mr. Wentz?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I understand the concern that you particularly raised about the expansion of that excavation under the building that was not, in your view, addressed by the wetlands agency. But I think this plan is substantially similar to that original plan that was.
So we've kind of gotten the best of both worlds here. They've met what looks to be the conditions that we've set for them. They've changed a little bit of the units, which is fair. That's what they're entitled to do. The footprint of the building's the same. They've met all of our conditions. And as far as parking and excavation, they're now more in line, if not completely in line, with that original 80 units application that the inland wetlands permit is for. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that is all, that's all transferable and all that stuff. We don't need to get into that, I don't think. But I think practically speaking, they may have addressed your concerns at this point. Having said that, though, we are here just to review the revised plan to see whether it meets the conditions that this commission approved.
It's hard for me to review the plans without having any expert here to ask questions of. Are we allowed to do that on a resubmitted 30G?
Commissioner, Mr. Wendt, I think if Commissioner Braun would like, to discuss this with somebody, the correct way is to move to a public hearing, though I'm not so sure the rest of the commission is, in line with that. We do have the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, the main experts in opposition on board. But I think, Mr. Wendt, the way to do what Commissioner Braun would like is to move it to public hearing. Though I'm not sure I think that's completely necessary, but that's the only way we can do that?
I would agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So, I mean, Commissioner Braun I assume you're making a request to have this go to the public hearing?
Yes, I would.
Okay. I mean, like I said, respectfully, I think we have the information that we need for the conditions of approval. Commissioner Levy, I'll put you on the spot. You're on the motion. Any thoughts on a public hearing? As I said, I'm not sure I believe that that's needed in this case, but your thoughts?
I would be opposed to a public hearing. I think we've had more than sufficient information. I think they've complied, and I'm satisfied with the record as it stands and see nothing to be gained by deferring or putting the applicant through a further presentation at this point.
I respectfully tend to agree with that. Any other commissioners? Anything to add or say regarding this? Commissioner Brayman.
Yeah, I tend to agree that the resubmittal meets the conditions of our approval, and I believe that the collaboration between the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, which fought hard against the application, and the developer to reach a compromise, this is worthy of our approval.
Especially again, as the conditions were pretty, well, at least as far as reducing the height, fairly objective. The exterior materials and the landscaping was to, avoid the impact on the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, and they have given their approval. I don't know any other experts in this case that really presented an opinion on it. So, any other commissioners? So the motion on the table is approving the revised plans as presented as being in conformity with the conditions of approval. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Commissioner Braun. Any abstentions? Commissioner Harrison, excuse me. So 5 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstained. Is that an accurate characterization? I think it is. Okay. Moving to the next next item, new applications for recommendation to public hearing. First item is zoning regulation proposals.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, there's a bundle of things here. There are 4 items that you can move as one. We will hear them separately, and you will ultimately vote on each of these separately. But back in September, we had a planning. We sat down and had a separate planning meeting to discuss the impact of several changes to the statutes that were made in the last legislative session. The first is regarding the retail sale of cannabis, which under state law now will be permitted as of May of next year. And municipalities through their zoning commissions have to take an affirmative position as to whether the uses are prohibited or, if permitted, how they are to be regulated. And choosing not to do anything would render them to be considered, presumed to be permitted as quote unquote other similar uses. So when we discussed this back in September, the commission had advised us that it was the commission's opinion to move forward with a 1-year prohibition. So we have crafted language that would simply adopt the definition of cannabis establishments as provided by the statute and say that those uses are prohibited for a period of 1 year unless that prohibition is extended beyond that time by the commission. So that's item number 1, is basically a temporary moratorium, if you will, but adopting a ban of cannabis uses for a period of a year. I don't know if you want me to continue or you can move these in total. The second item, you may recall that the
Commissioner, Mr. Wen, I think we don't have to go through each of them. I mean, it all follows the same pattern, that these are things that we had to address with new state laws, and a public hearing is required for all regulation amendments.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out there is, in addition to the opt-out of the accessory apartment reg, we did make some amendments and are proposing to make some amendments to our regulations that were discussed by creating some additional opportunity. So if anybody takes issue with anything that we're proposing, please let me know, but we're otherwise, with the commission's blessing, ready to proceed to public hearing for these items. The last item is just more of a housekeeping deal. The flood management regulations, FEMA is requiring us to make some tweaks to our regulations to remain consistent. So it falls under the housekeeping category, but I appreciate it. I'll cut it short and leave it to you to move these to hearing for future consideration.
I have a motion to move this to public hearing. Commissioner Brayman?
Moved.
So moved, yes, sorry. Second? Commissioner Ford, seconds. As I said, public hearing is required. Any other comments?
Just wanted to commend staff for their work on drafting these regulations.
Yeah, so noted. I think sometimes we take advantage of how good our staff really is. So thank you very much for your help and your work in this.
Appreciate the comment. Look forward to the future public hearing.
All those in favor of moving to public hearing, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next item, zoning regulation amendment, application of Sacred Heart University to amend section 5.2.5 of the zoning regulation, lot coverage and floor area.
Mr. Chairman, you could likely take this in companion with item C, which is 175 Jefferson Street, also a special exception application of Sacred Heart. Basically, what Sacred Heart is proposing is the construction of a new student residence hall up on the same portion of their campus that was formerly occupied by the Jewish home. They've just recently completed a quad set of dorms up there. And to implement this plan, they are proposing an amendment to the regulations to increase their lot coverage and floor area from 15% and 30% respectively to 20% and 40% respectively. But again, both of these require a public hearing and will likely be heard together. So at your discretion, you can move these together.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate. So again, I called the zoning regulation amendment, the second 175 Jefferson Street special exception application of Sacred Heart University pertaining to the construction of a new student residence hall. Public hearing is required for both. May I have a motion, please? Commissioner Ford moves, I assume moves to approve. Seconded by Commissioner Levy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Moving on to compliances. 1125 Post Road, application of RK Brick Walk, Roman numeral 5 LLC for a retractable awning over existing outdoor dining area in the centered design district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is the site of Flipside Restaurant, which hopefully you're familiar with. They currently maintain a seasonal outdoor dining patio behind the store, and because of its location, they're seeking to install a retractable awning over the existing patio. This is before you really, because there's a frame attached to this thing. Because of its size, there's a permanent frame over which the awning will be deployed and retracted. It's positioned such that the patio can continue to be used for 3 parking spaces during the off-season, and with the installation of this awning, we'll be able to continue to facilitate that. I don't have anything else beyond that, Mr. Chairman.
May I have a motion? Commissioner Francis? Move to approve, Commissioner Francis?
Yes.
Okay. Second? I'm sorry, I missed if somebody seconded already. May I have a second? Second from Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Francis?
Yes, this continues their listing on the seasonal dining sheet that we have. Must be 2 pages long now, and will help the restaurant certainly in this economy. And it's a good idea because they get the sun most of the day, I guess, based on their location. So it should be good for the restaurant patrons and the town.
Commissioner Ford, anything to add? Mr. Nguyen, as far as I could tell, this comply with our regulations?
It does, in my opinion, yes, sir.
Any other commissioner like to say anything on this topic? Or are we ready for a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item, 2480 Blackrock Turnpike, application of Eunice Lee to establish a medical office in a portion of an existing building center design district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this site is a location of White Birch Plaza on Blackrock Turnpike. There was this is a 2-story building, which is 1st floor retail with 2nd floor office. There was a liquor store on the 1st floor that has recently relocated a few centers down the street to the Lake Hill Shopping Center and space adjacent to Trader Joe's. This pediatric dentist use is proposing to utilize the space that was vacated by that liquor store. It is a change in use from retail to medical use. Both are permitted uses in the district. The parking requirements for medical are the same as that for retail, so that the swapping out of this retail use for medical has no parking implications with respect to additional parking demand based on our regulations. So that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner
Move to
Levy,
appro- Move to approve.
second from Commissioner Ford. Sorry, did you not raise your hand? Did I volunteer you, Commissioner Ford?
No, I'll second it.
Okay. I'm still getting used to this, so. Commissioner Levy, anything to say?
It's a permitted use. I'd approve it.
Commissioner Ford,
I concur with Mr. Levy.
same from my end as well. Any other commissioners? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstain? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to our public hearing. First will be 2405 Blackrock Turnpike, special exception and special permit applications of Shiraz Chowdhury for additions and renovations to convert existing service bays to retail use, an additional gas pump island in the design commercial district. So before we start, I'll at least give a quick quick speech to the public. We are now entering our public hearing. The way applications go progress is the applicant will make its presentation. The commissioners will ask questions where needed, if needed. After the applicant finishes his or her presentation, we open up to the public to discuss the issue with us. We don't generally ask questions of the public. If you would like to speak during the public session, please sign up in the comment section. Just write your name. We'll be mindful of that when it's time for the public comments section. If you don't sign up, I'll make one at the end of public comment section. I will make one general announcement. And then after the public, the applicant gets a rebuttal presentation. So with that, unless there's anything I missed, the applicant, please, is that you, Mr. Attorney Fitzpatrick?
It is, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me okay?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, my name's Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Frey and Bologna. We have offices at 1735 Post Road. I'm here tonight representing Shiraz Chowdhury, the lessee of the premises known as 2405 Blackrock Turnpike. This property is an existing service station located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Brookside Drive and Blackrock Turnpike. It is south of Fred's Catering, formerly the Swanson Fish Market. This property contains 19,185 square feet, approximately a half an acre, and is located in the design commercial district. The property presently contains a service station with a small convenience store and repair bays. The gasoline filling station is a permitted use in the design commercial district via special exception approval. The service station at present does include a convenience store. Retail uses, such as the convenience store, are permitted uses in the design commercial district via special permit approval. The intent of the applicant is to eliminate the repair use on site and to expand the existing convenience store. The existing fuel pump use will be expanded by the addition of a second pump island. There is a modest addition proposed at the westerly end of the building in conjunction with the convenience store use. After discussion with the zoning department staff, my client and the project architect, Greg Neffinger, the size of the proposed addition has been reduced from 700 square feet to 500 square feet, which permits the elimination of a parking space proposed to be located in the front of the station. In turn, the elimination of this parking space improves access to and from the new pump island. This service station on this site has been in operation for over 50 years. The building was constructed in 1966 per the town assessor's records. And certainly the proposed updating and renovation of the station is warranted. To further describe the proposal, Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to introduce the project architect, architect Greg Neffinger, an architect with offices in West Springfield, Massachusetts, who prepared the application to the commission. Greg.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for your service. I was a member of the West Springfield Board of Appeals for 16 years, so I know the commitment that you make. This is a significant renovation, not only of the building, but of the property in general. We are going to be eliminating the repair bays, and we'll be making the whole space into a convenience store with a small deli. We're going to be putting a modest addition onto the building, and that would be used for walk-in cooler and storage that is associated with that. In the exterior of the building, we'll be adding a new pump island. We'll be upgrading and renovating the exterior of the building. So all of the bay doors would be turned into glass, and this has been done on other projects by Mr. Chowdhury with very significant aesthetic improvement. When you walk into the space, not only will it be clean and modern, but also very safe. And also other improvements to the exterior of the building will be adding landscaping, and similar to the parking lot renovation that was recently done adjacent to the building. I'm not sure if I should share my screen so that you can see the drawings, or how would you like to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
All right. Emmeline, is it okay letting him share since he's doing the presentation? It might be easier.
Yeah, he's all set. Greg, if you have any problems, just let me know and I'll share.
Okay, great. Guess it's asking me if I would allow it to share. So there it is. Yep. Okay. Sorry, give me one more second here. Okay. It looks like I am having some problems sharing my screen.
Okay, I'm on it.
Thank you, Emmeline.
There you go.
That's great. So the existing building, if you can you see my cursor?
You're not gonna be able to see yours. It's gonna be Emmeline's cursor.
No, but you can describe, go ahead and describe, Greg, and then you can tell me to move my cursor if I'm not in a location that you need me to be in.
Great. Sometimes after we look at these projects for months and months, it kind of glazes over for us. We become so familiar with it that I may pass over some information. But Emmeline, if you could point out where the existing building is. And to the left is where the addition is going to go, and it's basically going to be extruded off of the exterior of the building.
Is it possible to make this bigger? I cannot see what the applicant is presenting. Thank you.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, so again, Emmeline, if you could point out where the existing building is right there with that special darker hatching. And on the left is where the addition is going to be 18 feet long, and it's going to be extruded off of the end of the building. So it's going to be the same width as the existing building. That's 500 square feet. We're required, because of that 500 square feet, to have 13 parking spaces, which we are providing. And because of the pumps, we're required to have 5 extra parking spaces under the zoning bylaws if retail is associated with those pumps. So we have 18 parking spaces altogether that we're providing. There's a handicap space in front, and we've changed because we've made the addition smaller. We've now eliminated a parking space in front of the building so that the traffic to and from the islands would be much smoother. So the Emmeline, can we point out where the pumps are?
Yep. Right in the front.
So to the right, where Emmeline is showing, is the existing pumps, and then right there, yeah, and then that's where the new pumps are going to go, to the left of those pumps there. We also are going to be removing all of
This
the
time you're having 3 pumps?
3 additional pumps besides the 2 pumps that are there. Yes.
How is the flow in and out with 3 pumps? I can't really recall a station in town that has 3. Maybe there is. How's the
it's quite-
inflow?
First of all, it's quite a large site compared to other sites. Like
Yeah.
there's a Shell station across the street, and so yeah, so there's people will still continue to get on and off the site the way they currently do. There are 3 curb cuts for the property, and so one off of Blackrock, 2 of them off of Blackrock Turnpike, and one of them off of Brookside Drive. Those are existing, and those are going to remain. So from
That's what I meant, the one on Brookside. How is the traffic flow, the egress, and especially the input? When you see that you can't get the pump that you want, you have to go around, get it on your side. Does that work okay with a triple?
Well, it's always a challenge everywhere you go. Even I go to Costco and they have, I think, 4 different 4 pumps, and you still have to kind of either wait or make your way around to the other side. So I think it's always somewhat of a maneuvering, but it's definitely doable. And there's enough area there also to queue up if you have to for the pumps.
Greg, do you want me to go to the next slide?
That'd be great, thank you. So here's the existing building. You can see the 3 garage bays on the top there. Those are typical garage doors. And you'll see in the next drawing that we replace it with glass, but you see the 3 doors, and each of them is separated by glass, right, existing. And to the left is where the existing convenience store is. So we'll be expanding that all the way through the whole building. And Emmeline, if you go down below, this is the existing floor plan of the 3-bay garage. There's offices in the back shown at the top of the drawing. And to the left is where the convenience store is with a handicap bathroom. Could you go to the next drawing, Emmeline, unless anyone has any questions? So now this drawing shows the exterior of the building. Now you can see all of those squarish glass panels that will now be replacing the garage doors. And it's kind of a technical drawing here, so they all have words on them describing what is glass and what is metal panel. And then in the middle, there's going to be the new entrance to the convenience store. That's good, yeah. And then if you can go down, Emmeline, to the plan below that. And then what you see at the top there is where the offices were. We're going to be turning that into food preparation. And below that, there will be a long counter, shelving, and to the right is where the addition is, with all those zigzag lines. Is where those are all doors for the walk-in cooler.
Oh, can I ask?
Yes, please.
The bathroom utility room. The bathroom is right opposite the sandwich prep table, which I don't find too appetizing. Is there any possibility it could open from the outside like the utility room does, or could you swap the 2 of them?
Those 2 are existing. We're just they're remaining. There's an existing utility room with a hot water heater in it, and that bathroom is existing. It would be for employees only. and the bathroom to the far left is the existing handicap bathroom that would be available to the public. I understand what you're saying. I would say that I would defer to the health department if they feel like the arrangement is of a concern. We'd be happy to rearrange the appliances if necessary.
Any other questions at this point?
We can keep going if you'd like. The next drawing is more of a technical drawing, so I think we can skip that. And this drawing here, also a technical drawing with window details, so we can skip that. And this drawing, oops. This drawing is the civil engineer survey drawing, which is showing the location of the, oops, if we can go back up one drawing to sheet, yeah.
Sorry, it's just moving a bit slowly. Hold on one second.
That's okay.
I think you need to zoom out when you're scrolling and then zoom back in once you get there.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. So this is another site plan, and it repeats a lot of the information that we've already seen. Again, these drawings are full technical drawings for construction, so there's a lot of information here. But I will say that we'll be landscaping and repaving right up to the existing sidewalk. And we'll be providing a buffer on Brookside Drive of landscaping. The landscaping on Blackrock Turnpike side will remain as is. And so presently, the asphalt goes right up to the sidewalk. And if you recall the site, there's a fence there, and there's some vehicles parked within the fence. All that's going to be removed, and we'll be landscaping very similar to the property to the left that has trees and grass and other plantings. And later I'll show you the landscape plan. But we are asking for special permission in order to go within 5 feet of the property line instead of 10 feet from the property line on the Brookside Drive, similar to what the adjacent property on the left, they also go actually even closer to the property line than we are. That was recently renovated. Yeah, so again.
What property is that, sir? What property is that you're talking about?
It's to the left, right there. Yeah, where the cursor is showing there. Those parking spots are not our parking spots. That's parking spots of the adjacent property. You can see that top parking space goes right up to the property line. Will be 5 feet from the property line with a special landscaping occurring in that area.
Nothing there?
Athletic shoe factory, is that one? Jewelry store?
If I may, Commissioner, Jim Went for the record. The property to the left on your screen, the adjacent piece is the entrance and lower level parking for the Fairfield Woods Plaza. Fairfield Woods Plaza is, if you're, is behind this, kind of wraps around this this parcel, and it has retail facing Blackrock Turnpike, and then has an office component on the lower level that accesses from Brookside Drive.
Question, and we'll go to Commissioner Braun, who I see.
Yeah. Could you?
Hold on, Commissioner Braun, let me just ask the question quickly. You mentioned the 5 feet off of Brookside. That's in our discretion to give you 5 feet, otherwise it's 10 feet, I think.
Correct. The zoning bylaws require 10 feet off of the property line adjacent to the street. And we're requesting that we go 5 feet from the property line. And as I said, we'll still be further from the property line than the newly renovated mall there.
And this is on Brookside?
Yes,
You're talking
correct.
about? Okay.
If
And
I
just
can make
how-
a point and interrupt, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Attorney Fitzpatrick.
if you look at that plan, the parking is actually over 20 feet from the paved portion of Brookside Drive. So I'd submit that the purpose, and there will be landscaping, as Mr. Neffinger pointed out, in that 5 feet between the property line and the spaces, but it is literally over 20 feet if you check it out with a
From the curb.
scale from the paved portion of Brookside. So I would argue that the purpose and intent of the regulation is being utilized, is being served by what we're proposing here.
And why do you need the 5 feet then? I'm not understanding that.
Just to, I think, and Mr. Neffinger does this for a living, he can address it, but I think it's to make sure that we have improved circulation on site.
Sure, if we were to go to a 0, if we went right up to the sidewalk, that would even give us more. But we're attempting to beautify the project and to try to add trees and bushes and things of that nature as a buffer for Brookside Drive.
But Attorney Fitzpatrick is making the point, I think, that the parking spaces are about 20 feet from the street. And they,
That's correct.
landscaping in between.
That's correct. We'll be landscaping from the curb to the sidewalk, and then we'll have an additional 5 feet of landscaping from the sidewalk to the to the parking spaces. But yes, we are about 20 feet from the Brookside Drive.
But then I just don't understand why you need the 5 feet then if your parking spaces are about 20 feet off of the street.
Oh, well, we would be happy to go right up to the sidewalk. I interpreted it was from the property line, but maybe Jim Wendt could explain that. If it's from the curb, then we'd be happy to go.
The distance is properly measured from the property line. And I think to address the chair's question, we'd be happy to go to a 0 setback for those parking spaces. We did not want to be too aggressive, so we went from 10 feet to 5 and put landscaping in that 5-foot strip.
Yeah, but in the past, in other applications, we requested 10 feet. So, and I'm not suggesting we're going to do that here, but what I'm trying to understand is you're asking for discretion to have a lesser setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. But then
That's correct.
But then you're telling me that is there 20 feet between the parking space and the property line?
No, from the curb.
20 feet from the parking
Okay.
space to the
Okay.
actual paved portion of Brookside Drive. I'm
Okay.
sorry if I didn't make that clear.
No, I had a feeling it was on my end, but I wanted to ask the question. How important is it for you to have that 5 feet from the property line as opposed to 10?
Very important. Mr. Neffinger?
I would defer to the owner, but again, we didn't want to push it too much, so we were keeping the 5 feet. To go to 10 feet would be a burden for us for circulation from the property line.
No, that's what I needed to hear. That's why I want, that's what I wanted to hear was that there was a good reason, and that's something we need to consider. I think I saw Commissioner Braun and then Commissioner Harrison.
Can you explain in detail? It's hard to tell. I'm looking at an aerial view right now.
That's correct.
The difference between the landscaping now and the proposed landscaping, it's a little bit hard to tell because there's not really a color rendering. It's just the site.
Right.
I can't tell how it's changing. The way I'm looking at an aerial view, I see 2 trees and nothing else really at all. I think the trees are on your property. Hard to tell. They look like they might be behind the building, and then there's a tree approaching Brookside, but I don't know if that's on your property or the other property.
I'd be happy to explain that. Yes, right now there are no trees there. There's no grass. It's all asphalt right up to the curb of Brookside Drive. So the whole property is asphalted on that side of Brookside Drive. So we're proposing to landscape beyond our property between the existing sidewalk and the curb. So that will all be new grass and new trees in that area. Also, from the property line to the parking areas, we're also proposing to plant some bushes in that area too, which is also asphalt right now. So very simply, it's all asphalt presently.
And I was reading the code review notes. I know that they're not directive, they're just sort of guidance. The tree warden had some comments about adding X number of trees. It's earlier on in the 300-page package. Do you think you complied with his wishes?
Yes, we have. We've added those trees, and we've added, there's also some other trees that are shown adjacent to the property to the left. That is, I don't know if you could zoom into that, Emmeline.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see those 3 trees we've added there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
See that.
so I believe we've complied with that. That was in my written narrative in response to comments that were made during the department heads review. And so I believe we've met that.
And the corner of Brookside and Blackrock, all those little round circles, are those trees? What are those things? Are those shrubs?
Those are plantings. Those are perennial plantings, and yeah. So yes, I can.
That's certainly an improvement over what's there now. What's there now is barren, and all the sidewalks obviously are remaining, and you're putting plantings in the space between the sidewalk and the road.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And then the only other question I had right now is, could you do sort of the same treatment on the lighting plan? Because I know there were some questions for the lighting plan, and it's hard to tell exactly how that's changing from before to after.
Sure. That would be the next drawing down, Emmeline. Drawing A7, sheet A7. So coming up on the right are the fixtures that we're proposing, which are LED fixtures that are pointing down to eliminate any light spill beyond the property. And we'll be putting the, I can point it out. First of all, there's lighting on the underside of the canopies, and then there's a light right here. There's a light here. There's a light over in this area. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot my cursor doesn't work on here. Yeah. Thank you, Emmeline. Yeah. So
I'm starting at the corner of Blackrock Turnpike and
right there.
So this
There's
one right
one
here.
there. Yeah. Where
And
there's
then
a,
go counterclockwise.
yes, and those are existing, but we'll be replacing them with new fixtures. And then if you go down, there's another one near the propane tank. And yeah, and then I believe there's one at the bottom left corner that will be shining in the back of the property. And that's the extent of the lighting.
And how does that differ from what's there now?
Well, first of all, they're all going to be new, so they'll all be upgraded to modern fixtures, LED, energy efficient, and they'll also have a reduction of the light spill that goes beyond them to reduce light pollution. And there's more. Of course, when you because we're improving the whole area, we want to have lighting over all those improved areas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The police had a bunch of comments about it's a very busy there's a light at that intersection, right?
That's correct.
They had questions in their code review, which obviously was months ago, about is there a left turn only? Are there any issues with additional traffic or entry and egress from the site on that corner based on having the 3 pump stands?
The existing site has the same ingress and egress as are proposed. So there was one question about the bottom right curb cut. Yes, right in that area. And the public safety officer was asking that there not be a left-hand turn there, but there is an existing left-hand turn there. And we feel like it's necessary for, people are going to do it anyways, we think, but if they have to wait for the light to change for them to go out, or if there's not much traffic, then they just pull out.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you talking about Blackrock Turnpike or Brookside?
Blackrock Turnpike.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Deffinger, for going through all this. I have a question for you, and I'm not sure if you're the proper person for this. Maybe it's for Mr. Fitzpatrick. How many customers are there right now currently in its current situation? And what's the anticipated customers when you have a larger retail footprint and more pumps? Do we know that?
We don't have an exact numbers, but we did discuss this, and we do feel that there will be an increase in customer because of the retail. But we feel like the site is a very large site, and we're making significant improvements to the parking, and the parking is on the perimeter. We feel like the pedestrian traffic from the parking to the building will be very safe. It's somewhat segregated to the left of the property.
The other
So
point
no one
that I
knows how
make,
many customers they
Commissioner,
have on average? I'm surprised to hear that.
Bill, maybe you have something there.
The only point I'd make, Commissioner, is we are losing the repair business. So there will be no cars parked that are wrecks. There'll be no cars parked that have been repaired and are waiting to be picked up. So the site will be much cleaner. I don't think you can predict the number of customers until you've got the place cleaned up with the new proposal and the new expanded convenience store. I would make the point that in terms of traffic, I don't think that the store or the gas is a destination. I don't think anybody drives the Blackrock Turnpike to pick up a quart of milk, nor would they drive the Blackrock Turnpike, at least at a busy time, to get gas. It's more that you're on Blackrock Turnpike, you stop for gas, and then you get a Gatorade. I don't think it's a destination that drives traffic. Is the point I'm trying to make.
But you are going to be instituting.
Appreciate that. I had another question. Now, I know this area pretty well, and I know this Brookside Drive gets pretty backed up. I've been there many times. Has the applicant talked to the neighbors about the changes and the modifications made to this site? I imagine this will kind of interfere with the traffic in that area.
I can address that. In general, both at the Zoning Commission and at the Zoning Board of Appeals, for commercial uses, we generally don't take any poll of the neighbors. Fact of the matter is the use to the south is a commercial strip. The use to the north is Fred's Catering. The use across the street is another service station. This service station has been there for, I think, over 50 years. I don't think there's any significant change that should affect a commercial tenant.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for now.
Attorney Fitzpatrick, just a question or a point on what you had said earlier about not being a destination. This is going to be you are including a deli though. So presumably people may go and seek food from the deli.
It's possible, Mr. Chairman. I actually asked my client the reason for the expanded convenience store, and I thought his answer was pretty interesting. He's anticipating that with electric vehicles, there will be charging stations instead of gasoline pumps in the future, and that with those charging stations, there will be a longer stop, if you will. So if you're there for 10 minutes, then it might make perfect sense to get a sandwich, as opposed to today where, you and I can fill our gasoline tank in 2 or 3 minutes and you don't have the same interest. So that is the reason for the expanded convenience store. And it does, I think it has some logic to me.
I would think with the extra time spent on the property, as opposed, a little shorter with regular gas though, more people are on the property, longer wait times, maybe it gets a little crowded, a little extra traffic maybe as well.
Except, Mr. Chairman, I don't think there can be that many electric charging stations on one property. I'm going a little bit beyond my expertise.
But just for the record too, I don't think I saw a traffic study in there. Your point, I assume, for traffic is it's an existing use, it's a busy street, we're not adding as much as we already have. We can use
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It's an existing service station. It's going to continue to be a service station. You eliminate one use, the repair use. You add another island. For that reason, there was no traffic study done. And again, my point was that I don't think it is a destination that as such drives traffic.
Any other commissioners have questions, or can we move forward?
There's
Commissioner
no
Price?
electric charging station at this, is there?
Excuse me?
There's no electric charging station.
At present, there are not.
Attorney Fitzpatrick?
Can I conclude, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, unless there's anything else, feel free to conclude or continue.
Mr. Neffinger, you have anything else?
I'd be happy to answer any questions that the members would have.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I'd like to conclude. As I stated earlier, this service station has existed on this corner for over 50 years. This proposal improves the building, adds a convenient pump island. Curb cuts on site remain essentially the same. The repair use, which has become increasingly difficult to operate in a small shop such as this due to the computer and electronic systems contained in all vehicles, is being eliminated, and a convenience store is being expanded. The service station use and the convenience store use are permitted uses in the design commercial district, as I outlined earlier. The underground fuel tanks are being removed. New up-to-date underground tank system will be installed. A new impervious area drainage system will be added to the site, where virtually none exists at present, which is a significant environmental benefit. The plan and zoning file contains an email from Laura Pulley, the Assistant Town Engineering Manager, stating that the proposed drainage system satisfies the town's stormwater attenuation requirements. The proposed parking satisfies the requirements of the regulations in terms of the number of spaces. We have fully discussed the utilization of a 5-foot setback for several parking spaces adjacent to Brookside. Again, this is a legally conforming service station use in which the repair use is being eliminated and the convenience store use is being expanded, as is the case in many service stations in town. The elimination of the repair use does have the added benefit of ensuring there are no damaged vehicles awaiting repair or repaired vehicles awaiting pickup by owners located on the site. By my experience, it's unlikely patrons will look to utilize the convenience store as a destination, but rather the use of the convenience store as part of the gasoline fill-up visit to the store. As such, I think there's no traffic generated by the convenience store itself, but it's rather attendant to the service station use, which again has existed on site for over 50 years. I think the improvement of this site, the building, the gas pumps, the underground fuel storage tanks, the new storm drainage system all make good sense, resulting in a proposal which is worthy of the Commission's support and approval. I'm reluctant, but if I could add one thing, this application was originally filed on August 18th. That's 4 months ago. Scheduled to be heard at the Commission public hearing on November 9, was unable to be heard because of the extensive discussion of the Greenfield Hill Veterinary Hospital application. My request is that if it's possible to be decided tonight, the applicant would very much appreciate it, recognizing the lengthy time this application has been in the queue. For the reasons I've outlined, I'd request this application be approved. My client is on this call, and he and I and Greg Neffinger, the architect, will be happy to answer any questions the commission may have. Thank you for your time and attention.
Commissioner Francis, did you have a final question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if we could look at the landscape plan for Blackrock Turnpike. The Brookside Drive one is excellent. Okay, so
There are two significant existing curb cuts adjacent to Blackrock Turnpike, which make the landscaping very difficult. The primary landscaping is just as Emmeline has shown here, and Mr. Nevinger can confirm, is the significant improvement at the corner.
right, yeah, very attractive. Is this a tree belt out here between the concrete walk and I can't read that writing?
Right now, what's being
Existing
pointed,
something or other.
what's being pointed
Existing.
out right, sorry, what's being pointed out right now, by the
That's
cursor?
the curb cut.
There, right, that's the curb cut, and right now that is, let's just call it, withered, plants, and we intend to, improve that with better, grass and, mulch, you know, to improve it, but right now, there's no intention of planting any, bushes there or anything of that nature.
Why? Wouldn't that upgrade the site a lot to do that? I didn't mean a tree, but could you do some bushes?
We could, I was a little concerned about the sight lines and things of that nature. So we just intended to improve, right now it's a very low, ground cover, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And we were intending to just
Replace that ground cover, correct, Mr. Nevinger?
Yes,
All right, so you'll be making some effort to make it look attractive.
yes.
'Cause it seems to be doing a very nice job on the site. I know Blackrock Turnpike is just so paved, unwelcoming in a lot of ways. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have final questions? Okay. All set for now, Attorney Fitzpatrick?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thanks very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. We open up the public comment portion. I don't see anybody signed up. So I will make just a general announcement. Does anybody member of the public wish to be heard on this application? 2405 Blackrock Turnpike. Going once, twice. I'll end that portion of it. Attorney Fitzpatrick, no need to rebut, I guess, when there's nothing to rebut. I do remember your request for an expedient decision. You know, that's not something we generally do, and with newer members, newer chair, I always like to take the time to review it myself. Unless any member of the commission thinks otherwise, I would move on as we normally do. Consider it next time, which would either be maybe later this month or at least in January.
Understood, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing for 2405 Blackrock Turnpike. We can go to the next item, 2-6 Beacon Square zoning compliance application of Beacon Square Properties LLC pertaining to a 26-unit residential development pursuant to section 3G of the Connecticut General Statutes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Hope everyone can hear and see me okay. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm an attorney in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm here representing the applicant tonight with regard to this matter. The principal of the applicant is Turk Parlakilik, who is a longtime resident of this area and who the commission may know has developed other properties in the immediate area. all of which been successfully completed, and I think have had a very nice aesthetic benefit on the neighborhood. The proposal that's before you tonight is an application to construct a 26-unit multifamily residential development located at 2-6 Beacon Square. The application is for site plan approval, and it is made, as I'll elaborate on during the course of my remarks, pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-3G. The development will consist of 15 two-bedroom and 11 one-bedroom units. As you will hear, each will have a garage. The two-bedroom units will be approximately 1,800 square feet, and the one-bedroom units approximately 780 square feet. 26 parking spaces are provided in the garages, and in addition, there'll be 6 on-site parking spaces, so a total of 32 parking spaces for a parking ratio of 1.2 1.2 spaces per unit. 3 buildings are proposed, as you will hear, and each building will accommodate 3-story townhouses with garages on the first floor. Architecturally designed by Philip Cerrone Architects, and Mr. Cerrone, I think, has done a very nice job. He will make a presentation to you shortly with regard to the architectural design and building materials. As the Commission knows, Section 8-3G is the Connecticut Affordable Housing Land Appeals Act, and this proposal, as I said, is made in compliance with and pursuant to the provisions of CGS Section 8-30G. An affordability plan in accordance with the statute is found starting at page 3 of our material. And in accordance with that affordability plan, 8 of the units will be set aside as affordable for a period of 40 years pursuant to the statute, meaning a total requirement of 30% of the units will be deed restricted as affordable for that period of time. 2 of the 2-bedroom and 2 of the 1-bedroom units will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income, as the statute requires. 2 of the 2-bedroom units and 2 of the 1-bedroom units will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income. A few comments. First of all, based upon our experience with regard to similar proposals in Fairfield, many of which have been come to fruition with the support of this commission, we found and anticipate that the units, both the affordable and the market rate units in this particular development, will be occupied by primarily 2 categories of people: those over 50 and or younger people seeking to remain in Fairfield. Either way, what these developments do, in addition to providing an increased inventory of affordable housing, is provide housing for people who have roots in Fairfield, want to remain in Fairfield, want to return to Fairfield, want to contribute and be part of Fairfield. And that's where the affordability is important. It also, we find, provides a great opportunity for what we refer to as workforce housing, benefiting a lot of people, be they teachers, police, fire personnel, and the like, who work for the town in many different areas. The legal standards applicable to reviewing proposals under 8-30G, I know are well familiar to the Commission. I have submitted a brief memorandum with citations that are relevant. I will return to that and speak to that briefly during my conclusion. But obviously, in essence, under 8-30G, what you find is that the Commission has to analyze and has the burdens of establishing, based upon quantifiable probable evidence in the record, that there will be some impact negative to public health and safety that outweigh the need for affordable housing and cannot be tempered by the imposition of conditions. And as I'll elaborate on here, I don't think any of those factors pertain to this particular application. We did have a code review meeting on June 29, 2021. We've dealt with the comments relative to the code minutes. The WPCA approved the sewer connection with regard to this proposal on March 17th, 2021. And you have a traffic report submitted by Michael Galante of Hardesty and Hanover, dated December 1, 2021, and Mr. Galante will shortly make a presentation. You also have an email to Mr. Wendt from Laura Pooley of the Town Engineering Department, dated December 6, 2021. In that document, which is part of your record, she confirms the traffic and sightline analysis as made by Mr. Galante, which he will summarize tonight. She also confirms her approval of the drainage analysis and the drainage design, and indeed references the inclusion of rain gardens pursuant to requests and suggestions that she made early on in the process, because we have been working with the Town Engineering Department at an early time with regard to this proposal. She makes certain technical recommendations in paragraphs 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of her report. Those can and should be made conditions of your approval. The applicant has no objection to any of them, and we're happy to submit final plans, which will note those technical revisions. What I'd like to do at this time is have our presentation. I'm going to ask Philip Cerrone of Cerrone Architects to come forward. He'll give you an overview of the site and our proposed site plan, and then he will review with you the exterior elevations and interior floor plan that we propose. I'll then have, after Philip is finished, Michael Galante, as I referenced before, give an overview with regard to his traffic analysis. So, Mr. Cerrone.
Attorney Fallon, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
In your presentation, I saw on what looked to be what 32 of the PDF was a like a magazine or article. Where did that come from? Just out of curiosity.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just missed what you said. I apologize. What was it?
No, at least the page 32 of the PDF application that I have from you. I'm assuming.
Yes.
There is a
Yes.
article. What is affordable housing? Why is there no affordable housing in Fairfield? What I'm just curious. What if that was a publication? What was it from?
Let me look at that, and I will try to answer that.
Because I've looked through it. I couldn't tell myself, so I easily have missed something.
This is a document that I believe was originally generated by the Department of Economic Housing and Economic Development, but I'd have to check that for you. I'll get you. I'd want to confirm the actual source of that document because I'm not positive.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good evening. My name's Philip Cerrone, architect. I'm the architect for this project. My office is here in Fairfield. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Just give me 30 seconds here. Hopefully you guys can see this. So this is the existing site plan, just to kind of get you familiar with what's there currently. Currently, this is Beacon Square. There's a residential property on this side, a two-family. The parcels we're talking about are these two parcels here. There's a two-family home here that my client owns and a two-family home here that he owns. So the proposed project is, again, Beacon Square is here. And the way this project is designed is there's an entrance here on which basically the east side, and then another entrance here on the north side. So as you drove in on this side, we have 7 two-bedroom units here, 3 one-bedroom units here, some exterior parking here, including handicap spaces. And as John mentioned, every one of the residential units, these are all townhouse units that have their own entrances, and everybody has their own garage. So everybody has their own indoor parking space. So these are accessed on this side over here. There's a mailbox, excuse me, there's mailboxes here, a community mailbox for these units at this point. And then when you drive in here, there's 8 two-bedroom units on this side, 8 one-bedroom units on this side, and then a driveway down the middle that feeds all of the garages. There's mailboxes here for these units over here. we did meet with the fire marshal and went over the project, and one of the things he requested was some fire hydrants. So we do have a fire hydrant at the beginning of the project, the site here near Beacon Square. There's also one on the next corner by Beacon View. And then we have an additional fire hydrant at the back of the site over here. The other thing that he requested was that we had to turn around back here so that if there's an ambulance or a police car or something that comes in, not necessarily a fire truck, but they could at least turn around and get out of the site. So we did review the project with the fire marshal. As far as the units themselves go, so this is building one, which is the first one on the right-hand side. And I'm not gonna, I'll walk you through these on a different screen, but basically, as I said, we have 8 2-bedroom units and then 3 1-bedroom units. So I'm kind of just going to flip through these till we get to the more detailed units. On the exterior, again, and I'll walk you through some of the materials on the next screen, but they're basically all townhouse units. So each one of these units has their own garage, their own entrance, and they're completely separated with a 2-hour firewall in between each unit. So this gives you a little bit more information. So on the 2-bedroom units, on the lower level, the ground level, you have a garage that you drive in. Then adjacent to that, you have a man door that walks into this foyer area here, so with access from the garage. And then a family room in the back with some utility space. And then a couple sliding doors that give you some access to the exterior. When you get to the first level, it's basically a big open space. There's a little powder room here, a stair that goes up and down, a kitchen area. When you get to the second floor, bedroom in the front, bedroom in the back, 2 bathrooms. So they're basically 2 bathroom, 2.5 baths with their own washers and dryers and their own garages for each one of the units. On the exterior, we tried to stay in conformance with the neighborhood, and in fact, our height is approximately 31 feet to 32 feet, which is actually within the zoning regulations, although I know with the 830G that's not that important, but we're not taller than we would be allowed to build by the zoning regulations. On the first floor of these units, we have brick veneer. On the second and third floors, we have clad wood windows with shutters, clapboard siding, and then asphalt shingled roofs. This is just the back of the unit, and we'll show you a rendering as we get to the end of this. But on the 1-bedroom units, you have a garage. Everybody has their own garage, the utility room in the back, and then an entrance with a door from the garage as well as from the exterior. When you get to the first floor, again, it's one large space, washer, dryer, kitchen, living space. And when you get upstairs, full bath with a bedroom in the front here. The materials are basically the same except for the brick veneer on the first floor with these. On the other ones, the second floor actually cantilevers slightly over, but we do have a little bit more of an entrance area here. And then just to kind of give you an overview of what the project looks like, this is a view of the project if you were on Beacon Square. So Beacon Square is right here. This would be as you drove in from Beacon Square to the units, which is labeled as building number 1 on the side, on the kind of northeast side of the property. And as you can see, everybody's got their garage with an entrance and then their 2 living spaces above it. And then this is a view if you drove in to the 2 that are kind of on the northwest side of the property. Again, you would drive through the middle of this. This is actually the back of some mailboxes. We'll have a little bit of landscaping in the front here, and then some landscaping in the back of the property over here. Again, clapboard siding, brick veneer on the first floor on these. Second floor is a cantilevered over it, asphalt shingled roofs, wood clad windows. So that's kind of a really kind of quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Braun, and then Commissioner Harrison.
So what's there now are two duplexes right now, or one duplex?
2 duplexes.
3 duplexes.
2 duplexes.
Okay, and I'm trying to figure out from the rendering, are there 3 buildings you're building or 2? One is just garages for the.
No, I'll show you the site plan. So this is what's here currently. There's a duplex here and a duplex here. This is Beacon Square, which is town property here. This is Pine Tree Lane here. And just to orient you, this is Beacon View Drive over here. And there's another duplex over here on this side here. What we're proposing to build is this. So we have two driveways, one that drives in here and one that drives in here. We have one building here that has 7 2-bedrooms and 3 1-bedrooms, another building with 8 1-bedrooms, and another building with 8 2-bedrooms over here. Again, mailboxes as you drive in here, mailboxes as you drive in here. This driveway is actually a little bit oversized because when we met with the fire marshal, he did ask for us to make this a little bit wider just to make access for emergency vehicles easier.
So there are 3, so again, there's 3 buildings, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Harrison? I think you're on mute.
You want to keep this one?
Commissioner Harrison, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. There you go. Thank you for going through that, and bear with me. I'm a visual person and learner here. So is it possible to show me a rendering of the proposed houses complex to what's existing in the neighborhood right now? I just would like to see a side-by-side rendering if that's possible.
Side by side of, I'm sorry, of the proposed.
Compared to like the average house in the neighborhood, you said they're all about the same feet, 31 to 32 feet. Is it possible to see what this looks like compared to what's in the neighborhood?
I don't have a rendering of what's in the neighborhood. I mean, I could Google Earth it for you. But what I said was that we're within what the zoning regulations allow story home. I didn't go candidly. We have not measured the homes in the area, but I know that across the street, we're directly across the street from the Pine Tree Senior Housing Complex, and those are all, I believe, 2-story residential townhouses, somewhat similar to what we have here. They don't have garages, but I don't know. I honestly can't tell you what the average home is as far as height goes, but we are within what the allowable height is.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions? I can only see a limited amount of people on my screen, which is fine.
I can unshare if that makes it easier for you, Tom.
No, if you're still moving forward with your presentation, that's fine. They know to speak up when.
Well, I mean, if nobody has any questions for me right now, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and then I'm going to share his traffic report.
That's fine.
Mike, you just tell me what you want.
Can you discuss the amount of land in the back, from the rear property line? Because these developments are a lot bigger than what's there currently. Yeah, like back here.
What's the setback for building 1 for the?
Sure, I'm going to tell you. I'm happy to tell you that for sure. Give me a second.
What are they backing up to? Ronald Drive? Backyards?
Yes, Ronald Drive. So if we took the middle of this here, it's about 16 feet to the property line. And if we took from over here, it's about 30 feet to the property line there, and about 19 feet to the property line there. We've worked on this in a bunch of different ways, and actually when we went to code enforcement, and if you read through their notes, you'll realize that they made a bunch of comments about retaining walls, and at one point this was kind of built into the back of the property. We were able to redesign it to eliminate the retaining wall, most of the retaining walls that were back there, so that we could get the grades to work with all the natural grades instead of having to build retaining walls back there.
Mr. Saron, what's the setback for building 1 to the residences to, at least on the right on the building? I'm not sure what direction it is.
What's the dimension here?
Yeah, thank you.
That dimension is approximately 6 feet.
And for building
drainage swale around the back of the property, we have some air conditioning units back there.
Okay.
What are those, the compressor condensers for the whole building?
Right, so there's one, so they're separated out. So these two are for these 2 units. these three are for these 3 units. We've broken them down to where the closest to the units as we could get them. But I mean, they're small residential condensing units. The air handlers are inside the units in the apartments. There's no rooftop equipment any place, and there's no other ground mounted equipment.
No generator?
Correct.
And what's the setback of building 3 on the far left?
Well, this is building 3. You mean this building?
The one on the left?
This one here? It's again,
Yeah.
same thing. It's
What-
approximately 6 feet from the property line.
Even on the far left?
Yes, right.
Okay. What do our regs require? 10?
I honestly am not sure off the top of my head. I can check while we're on the call if you want to.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Any other commissioners have questions for Mr.
We can
Cerrone?
come back to it for sure.
Did you hear from the fire department? I think you mentioned, or maybe Mr.
I
Fallon.
personally met with the fire department, and we had CEC from the fire department. The fire department's comments were that they wanted to make sure, they wanted to make sure we had the ratings between the units, that code requires 30 minutes. We actually have 2-hour firewalls. Number 2, they wanted to make sure we have a fire alarm system, smoke detectors, all that in the units. Number 3, they wanted the additional fire hydrants, so we have 1 here and 1 here. And number 4, they wanted us to widen this driveway to make it easier if they have to get apparatus in here.
Did they mention about getting apparatus out, because you can't circulate around the buildings? You'd have to back, if for a fire engine to get to the last units. I'll say the building on the left. Is that building 3 on the left?
Right. Well, candidly, they will not bring a fire truck in here if there's a fire. The fire trucks will stop here. They're going to bring it. They when you deal with the fire department on all these projects, what they care about is if somebody's having a heart attack, can we get an ambulance in and out of the property? And so that's the reason we created this turnaround, which they requested back here. They're not going to bring a fire truck next to a building that's on fire.
Well, I mean, if they wanted to get down either one of these roadways, right? Whether there's a fire or not, they would have to back that fire truck up. Would you agree with that?
Back the fire truck up if they pull their fire truck in.
Thank you.
Are you allowing parking in front of the buildings or just in the driveway, not the garages?
Really, I mean, for the amount of space that we have here, really the parking on site is going to be here, not in front of the buildings. There is Beacon Square, obviously, that there's the ability to park a little bit on there. I mean, this is a public road.
Can you talk about any efforts to make articulation between the units architecturally and break up the facade?
We'll do that with colors more than with materials. So we'll change it so that all the units aren't the same color as we go through it. I mean, we have it just rendered kind of as the same thing, but we could definitely make some colors. And we did break up. We tried to step the facades back on some of these. Based on the configuration of the site. And honestly, I mean, we tried to do something that was within scale of the neighborhood. I have to be honest, and my client is actually sitting across the table from me. And if he wants, he can kick me. But the reality is that this project started as a much bigger project with many more units and several more stories to it. And we were fortunate enough to have a client that wanted to do something that fits in as best as it could in the neighborhood. And so that's why we ended up with 2-story, 3-story townhouses versus more of an apartment building kind of setting. So everybody's kind of got their individual homes, their own private entrances, etc. So.
Yeah, and I would just want to add to that. I commend you, commissioners, when you, in your diligence, as I know you will or have, travel around the neighborhood, because you'll see other developments that have been approved by this commission and then brought to fruition by Mr. Parlick-Halleck in accordance with what he said he would do. And they've been very successful. They've been very well received by the neighborhood. And that's what we're trying to duplicate here. The one thing I wanted to just, if I might, without interrupting questions, but just to get back to Commissioner Ford's question, I think two important points. The code review comments, which you have, Commissioner, dated June 29th, I think Phil accurately set forth what the comments of the fire department, Marshal Higgins, were. We did very preliminarily, before we really came up with even a conceptual plan, sat down with the fire department, because obviously in the context of an 8-30G application, let's be candid, fire safety, well, in any type of application, fire safety is of critical importance. And the determinative question in an 8-30G, based upon case law, some of it that was made relative to the Bronson Road case, the Garden Homes versus Town of Fairfield, is that for purposes of an 8-30G and the standard of public health and safety, compliance with the state fire and building code is the standard. And we made sure from day one, and I think you can confirm with your fire department during the pendency of this application, that this proposal complies in all respects with the state building and the state fire code. And and I would commend you, especially some of the newer members on the commission, that was the whole essence of both the Garden Homes Milford case and the Garden Homes Fairfield case. But we would want nothing else but a totally safe building, and this building meets that requirement. I'm sorry.
To that point, this actually, because of the way it's designed, actually classifies as a single family. It goes under the single family code, not under commercial codes, because of the way it's done. And it does have fire ratings and everything else. And I'm reading the code enforcement minutes. I'm sorry. I'm reading the code enforcement minutes, and basically he had 4 comments, and they were things such as, you know, the fire access we talked about, getting sets of construction drawings, and the firewalls between the units, which we have, and so.
Right, and the access issue was the primary focus that we had, just to get back to Commissioner Ford's question, which was a good question. But under the state fire code, based upon a building of this type and size, we comply with the provisions, which are fairly rigorous, of the state fire code.
Right.
If there are no other questions right now from Mr. Cerrone, although he's not going anywhere, I think I would take down the rendering, and we could put up the graphics that Mr. Galante is going to refer to in summarizing our traffic study.
Right,
Michael,
so
are you there?
Mike, just tell me what you want.
One question.
Hmm?
So you did not have to install a sprinkler system because it's using residential codes and not commercial?
Right, so that's 100% true. This goes under the 2-family building code. I had a conversation with the fire marshal about it, and he agrees with me that it does not require a fire sprinkler system.
And that's not dissimilar, Commissioner Francis, that is not dissimilar from other 8-30Gs that have come before the commission and been approved, that because of the residential nature and the size of those particular buildings as well, including some in this neighborhood, they did not require sprinkling.
And whether it's an 830G or not, it's either way.
Right, it's a code issue, yes. Mr. Galante,
Mike,
are you there?
I have your whole presentation, so I'm happy to be your guy for tonight. Is Mike on mute?
Michael, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Now we can. Sorry about that. Again, Mike Galante, good evening, Hardesty in Hanover. I'll describe briefly the traffic report that was submitted to the town. As mentioned, reviewed by the town engineering department, Laura Pooley, and she actually reviewed and approved the traffic report, the volumes, distribution, and so on, the analyses, and also reviewed, and I'm sure in some detail, the sightline analysis at the Beacon Square Pine Tree Lane Drive intersection, and agree with the analysis and that we have adequate sight distance in both directions. We analyzed and counted 3 intersections along Pine Tree Lane, Beacon View Drive to the, let's call it the northeast, Beacon Square, which is the site access, and then the Fieldcrest Road intersection. These are all basically T-type intersections, stop sign controlled, town controlled intersections. The counts were originally done in November of 2020, and yes, they were done during the pandemic, but following the guidelines by Connecticut DOT, we're allowed to use traffic volumes within 5 years of any new traffic counts. I can tell you now that the state is saying any new counts are what's considered the new norm, so we're not providing any adjustments anymore. But these volumes were adjusted. We obviously had volumes for this area from 2018. We adjusted the volumes to reflect a 2020 condition, and we called it a pre-pandemic condition. Phil, you can go to the next slide, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This figure 2 is from the report itself. It shows you the site location highlighted in yellow, the word site in yellow there. It gives you a good indication of the area. There was some questions about what else is around in the neighborhood. The senior housing is directly across the road, which was done a few years ago. We did those traffic studies at that time. It shows the road in front of the site. It shows the Beacon View intersection on the top right, and then the Field Crest intersection to the bottom left, with the site basically in the middle. Phil, next slide, please. This is just a graphic from the report itself. It shows the actual volumes that were adjusted to reflect a pre-pandemic condition, a review by the town engineering department. It shows the traffic volumes by turn and movements. It shows pedestrian counts, and we identify the morning and afternoon volumes as far as peak hour volumes, which would be, I'll show it on the next sheet, but that just gives you a graphic illustration of this intersections included in the study area. So you can go to the next one. The actual peaks were found to be 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning, and again from 4 to 5 in the afternoon. We also conducted counts on an hourly basis for several days, and that included the peaks related to the school, for example, in the mid-afternoon. And those volumes are actually lower than the 4 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, which is, I'll call it the commuter peak. So we did the commuter or highest volumes in the analysis itself. The next portion of this graphic shows, not yet, Phil. There you go. Just gives you volumes for Pine Tree, about 110 vehicles, AM and PM, Beacon View Drive, nearby 85 in the morning, 72 in the afternoon. Beacon Square itself is 3 to 5 vehicles. These are peak hour two-way volumes, and the Field Crest Road to the bottom of that table, and anywhere from 55 vehicles in the morning to about 46 in the afternoon. These are 1 hour volumes. As I mentioned, we adjusted these volumes from a 2018 to a 2020 and then eventually a 2022 condition by adjusting the volumes based on the counts we did in 2018. Obviously, the volumes were bumped up in each case. And then we applied a growth rate, which is at 0.7%. Again, the percentage, the 0.7% per year, is from Connecticut DO Planning Division. It's not something that we pick. We do provide the comparison between 2018 to 2020, and that's how we come up with the adjustment of 1.24 against the volumes for, that was actually the morning peak hour. So you can go to the next slide, please. Accident history was obtained from the Fairfield Police Department for a 3-year period from 2017 through 2019. We only have 1 reported accident on this road along, not near the site, but between Fieldcrest and Beacon Square. It was a rear-end collision dated, I think it was related to a driveway movement towards Fieldcrest Road itself. So at our driveway or our intersection, which is a town-controlled intersection, there were no reported accidents for those 3 years. And I'm almost sure we have the 3 years before that, which also didn't show any accidents. Site traffic, as mentioned, there's a proposal for 26 units. We're actually removing 4 units, so the net is the 22 units. We're generating, if it's pure new traffic and not accounting for 4 units being removed and put back in, anywhere from 13 to 19 trips during the morning and afternoon peak hours. So the net is really the 15 or the 11 trips, and the 15 and 11 are actually switched. It's really 11 vehicles in the morning peak, and the afternoon has the 15 trips. So in essence, we're adding about 11 to 15 cars to the roads surrounding the site itself. Site traffic distribution, which is on the next figure, Bill, is based on the actual traffic volumes and the counts in the area. So we duplicated that to some degree. We know where people want to go from this site itself, whether it's towards Tunx's Hill, Blackrock Turnpike, or Knapp's Highway, and so on. and we developed the distribution patterns from our site driveway out to the roadways, and that's what's shown on this figure itself. So you can go to the next one. This figure just simply applies the site traffic generation to the distribution patterns that I just mentioned a second ago, and we show the added traffic to each of the intersections, which you can see is quite low. The volumes are low. We're not adding a lot of traffic to this development and the roads surrounding the site itself. Bill, next one, please. Next step in any traffic study is to do capacity analysis. It's a model, it's a computer model, and it's based on volumes. Thank you. Based on volumes, number of lanes, type of traffic control, grades of the road itself, and so on. And what this says in very simple terms, many of you know what I say about the levels of service. A is there's really no delay. It's great conditions. As you go through the scale, A, B, C, D, it's somewhat like in school. As you go down that scale, you kind of get into trouble at school. In the means of traffic, as you get to C, which is average conditions, D is somewhat longer delays. We have an E in traffic, which is, we used to call it capacity, but it's now called simply more delay, and then F is more delay on top of that. And it relates to vehicle delay measured for each movement in the analyses that we complete for these intersections. This table simply shows, and this is an abbreviated table from the report itself. I just took out many of the columns just to simplify it, but it shows that the intersections, all stop sign control operate at level service A today. It will continue in a no build condition as level of service A for the key movements. In the build condition, it remains at level of service A with very, very little increase in delay. And what that tells us is this development has minimal, I'll never say no, but it has minimal impact on the area roads. And from that, we determined that there is no need to mitigate or change traffic control or restripe an intersection or something like that, or add a lane, which would never be the case in this neighborhood or for this type of development. But that's part of the analysis. If we had a traffic signal, we may recommend changing traffic signal timing, but these intersections are all stop sign control. Phil, you can go one more. The next step is the sightline analysis of the road itself, Beacon Square, at Pine Tree Lane, and it's based on speed and actual measurements at the intersection itself in each direction. We used two different methods which were reviewed by the town and agreed to. And in this case, looking to the right towards Field Crest, we use what's called intersection sight distance, which measured in a certain way. They're all based on speed. And we use a criteria that's from Connecticut DOT, which is what the town uses. And what we found here, by the way, the speed is really 28 to 29 miles per hour on this road near the site itself. The posted speed limit in this entire area is 25 miles per hour. So what we found is we have more than adequate sight lines to the right based on the intersection sight distance criteria. We have 450 feet, for example, and we need 309 feet for the speed of 28 miles per hour. So we certainly have that sight line. Coming out of the access road, if you will, Beacon Square, and looking to the left towards Beacon View, we used what's called stopping sight distance because we don't have intersection sight distance. But stopping sight distance has been used by the town in other locations. One was Bloomfield, which was this applicant's development that we did a few years ago. And on a project we didn't work on, which is at Maritz and Blackrock Turnpike, in the state review of the driveway out to Blackrock, which is a state highway, the state actually looked at intersection sight distance, but actually relied on stopping sight distance coming out of that driveway. So following the procedures accepted by CONDOT, certainly, and in this case, the town has agreed with us, we have more than adequate sight distance in each direction coming out of Beacon Square. So we're comfortable with the safety and operational characteristics of that intersection without any changes. We do recommend, and it's shown on one of the plans, we do recommend a stop sign and a stop bar coming out of Beacon Square. And that's really the limits of what we recommend as far as, we'll call it off-site road improvements or mitigation to traffic control. But in essence, that's a summary of the traffic report. It's minimal impact. Intersections continue to operate level service A. They're very low level, almost no accident history along any of these intersections near the site itself, except the one which was a rear-end collision. And that's a summary, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And this is just a summary: minimal traffic impact, no change in level of service, almost no increase in delay. Access meets the town standards as far as site distances approved by the town engineer or the town engineering department. and no off-site road improvements, although we're recommending a stop sign at the exit from Beacon Square, if the town would prefer that. That's a summary of the traffic report. Thank you.
Any commissioners have questions for Mr. Galante? Commissioner Braun.
I have a sense that there's going to be a need for overflow parking. There's the number of bedrooms is 41. There are 11 one-bedrooms and 15 two-bedrooms. So that equals 41, but there's only 32 parking spaces, including, I think there's only one parking space in each one car garage, and then there's an extra 6 spaces somewhere scattered outside on the parcel, not on Beacon Square, right? Within the property.
All the parking's on site.
Okay. Are they planning on using Beacon Square for overflow parking, or will they be parking on the street?
No, I would say that, again, based upon the experience that I think we have now in Fairfield, not only in this neighborhood, but also throughout the town with regard to other 8-30G proposals that the commission has approved. 2 things I think are important. One is practical and one is legal. The practical point is that these types of developments do not lend themselves to a lot of multi-car families, be they the 1 or 2 bedroom units. They generally find themselves with regard to a lot of single folks, a lot of empty nesters, etc. And we have found that as a practical matter, a parking ratio of between 1.2 and 1.3 spaces per unit, be they 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, because a lot of the 2 bedroom utilization is for people who desire to have something more akin to a home office or something like that. But the practical point is that in all these developments, Moritz Place, others that I could name and give you volumes of, and many of the commissioners have been on the commission when they've been approved, they've all been approved at parking ratios of 1.1, 1.2 to 1.3. And they have been found to be satisfactory, and we've never had a problem. We don't have a problem up on Moritz or Blackrock Turnpike or anywhere else. The legal point is that in looking in the context of 8-30G and what constitutes a public health and safety issue of such significance that it outweighs the need for affordable housing, courts have basically found parking ratios of anywhere in the neighborhood of 1 per unit or 1.1 per unit or 1.2 per unit. Indeed, again, in just local parlance, the Garden Homes development on Bronson Road, the parking ratio there for similar reasons as to your question was considered a reason for denial. This goes back a number of years, because when I close my remarks tonight, I'm going to commend this commission for the work they've done on affordable housing. But in that application that goes back a number of years, one of the stated reasons for denial was that the parking, and again, it was a mix of units, 1 and 2 bedrooms, at 1.2 was, I think it was in 1.1, but it was 1.1 or 1.2 was unsatisfactory. And the court did not agree with that and found that that was not a proper basis for denial. So as a practical matter, we've got sufficient parking here. We know that. Mr. Parlakalik's other developments are similarly parked, and we've never had a problem in terms of on-street parking. Other developments, as I've mentioned before, approved by this commission, have been similarly parked at 1.2 or 1.3, and there's never been a problem. And as a legal matter, the law, I think, is clear that that is a proper standard in the context of an 8-30G application.
Hey, Josh, I might just add to that. Turk's sitting in front of me, as I said, and I just talked to him, and he has 21 units between Beaconview and Bloomfield, and the ones on Bloomfield, there's 9 units over there, and nobody parks on the street, and a lot of his tenants, whether they're 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, are single parents, and they don't have 2 cars, and way more than half. 3/4 of the apartments, even the 2 bedroom ones, only have 1 car. So, I mean, that's the tenants that are in that neighborhood.
Right.
So if there, okay, so I'm not familiar with any statistics about who actually lives in these places. If you have, I'd love to see them. I'm curious about who does live in these places, because it seems to me if you are in the workforce, you're making enough money to have 2 cars and 2 people if you choose to live there. The rents are pretty high if you're not in one of the affordable units, and even in one of the affordable units, you're up around $1,100 to $1,300, I think, rent per unit. That's my understanding from the information you provided. But aside from that, I think it can be a safety issue if people park on the road, and that affects sight line or the ability for fire truck to get close access to the building. That's what I was wondering. Is Beacon Square the only egress, right? They have to go through Beacon Square, which is kind of like a courtyard looking thing. Do they park there now? What is it used for? It's not a road. It looks like it's kind of like a parking lot or something. Are they going to park in there? I mean, what use is
your question, again, is based upon a premise, respectfully, that we don't agree with. And that is that the parking is insufficient on site. So I don't know what more I can say than what I did say, that based upon the experience in this neighborhood with similar developments, 8-30G developments, based upon experience of other developments approved by this commission in Fairfield, in similar locations where on-street parking would not be desirable, for example, Moritz and Blackrock Turnpike, and based upon the case law, some of it directly related to Fairfield and a decision that was made 5 or 6 years ago, not by this commission, the standard of parking here is appropriate. And it wouldn't be sensible to underpark a facility, because at the end of the day, this is a business proposition. And if you're going to rent these units, the affordable units and the market rate units, you're going to make sure that you have sufficient parking. And the market tells us that these 32 spaces for this type of a development, 780 square foot 1-bedrooms, 1,800 square foot 2-bedrooms, will have more than sufficient parking here. And that's been actual experience.
Okay, possibly.
Sorry?
You're not, no, this is a announcement to everybody. If you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute, causing a little feedback.
Do you have any statistics?
Interrupt.
I'd appreciate seeing them, because I know on St. Moritz, I don't think they can park on the road there because it's on Blackrock Turnpike, right? So I do know that there are cases where it could be that overflow. We may not agree on what the adequate amount of parking is, and I don't have any data in front of me to show whether it's adequate or not. But if it is inadequate, and if they do park on Pine Tree Lane, how does that affect sightline? There was something in the traffic report that indicates they didn't have sightline on the ISD standard.
I have something to say. Is it possible?
Not yet. Looks like Ms. Greco, we haven't reached public comment yet. So if you could please.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to say about the sightline issue, I mean, I made my comment as far as the parking, but on the sightline issue and the SDS and the IDS, that's been reviewed by your engineering department, and they have found the sightline analysis to be appropriate, and they've approved it.
To that point, Mr. Fallon, Attorney Fallon, is that communication from our engineering department in the record?
Yes, I believe you can check with Mr. Wendt, but it was an email sent to Mr. Wendt. I think it was dated December 6th, so I assume it's part of your record.
Thank you.
There was, just to clarify, Jim Wendt for the record, subsequent to sending the agenda, I sent 2 emails. One was the engineering department email. The other was an email from the fire marshal's office. I can resend those, but it wasn't with the original agenda package. It was in a subsequent submittal.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions for Mr. Galante regarding traffic? Attorney Fallon?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, if there's a need or opportunity for rebuttal, I'll address that then, but I think I should deal with this at this point as my summary. The first thing I want to say, because I think it's important to say it, is that having been involved with affordable housing in Fairfield over certainly the last 20 years of my 40 years in practice, I think this commission deserves a great deal of credit, because I think there's been an evolution and a commitment by this commission to affordable housing. That doesn't mean you have approved every application that's come before you and you've measured each application carefully. But I think the commission should be commended because I think you do understand the statute. And more importantly, I think you do understand the need that we still have for affordable housing here in Fairfield. We're working towards a moratorium that was recently addressed in a newspaper article, but we're all aware of that. By the way, these units will help as we move towards that goal. But the fact still remains that right now, the town of Fairfield, by the statutory standard, is still deficient in terms of affordable housing units, so that we do need to continue to address that. I said I would address the legal standards. I need to do that, not to preach to you, because this commission is well aware of the legal standards, but I need to do that for purposes of a record, as they say. And what 8-30G, as I said at the beginning, says in essence is that the commission has the burden to prove, based upon evidence in the record compiled before the commission, that one, the decision is necessary to protect, and this would be a decision to deny, is necessary to protect a substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider, and that such public interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and that such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing proposal. In that context, and this is in the material I submitted, so I won't give you the citations, they're there, but our Supreme Court has instructed that the commission, that a court on review has to determine whether or not the record establishes, quote, more than a mere theoretical possibility of a specific harm to the public interest if the application is granted. Another case, which is the Garden Homes Milford case, says that for the record must establish that a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest is insufficient, and that the record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. A quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. When you apply that standard to this case, this matter, I would respectfully submit that there is nothing like any quantifiable probability of a harm to the public safety that would outweigh the need for affordable housing in this case. Your fire department has reviewed the application and they've spoken to it, and the application complies in all respect with the building and fire code of the state of Connecticut. And that is definitive based upon the case law of Garden Homes versus Fairfield. Your engineering department has reviewed the application and found that the drainage design and analysis is proper, as is the traffic report, including the sightline analysis. You have a situation where somebody asked the question, I think it was Ms. Francis, just for the record, we're well within the height limitations if this zone applied. This property is in the R3 zone. Interestingly enough, the side yard setback in the R3 zone is 15 feet. And you've heard testimony from Mr. Cerrone that we have variations of 16 feet to one property line, 30 feet to another property line, 19 feet to another property line. You've heard testimony from Mr. Galante that our net morning peak impact is 15 and our net afternoon, I believe he said, is 11. So at the end of the day, you have an application here that meets the standards of 8-30G, that in fact has diligently been prepared and I hope presented to show that there are no bases of probability of any harm that would justify under the case law the rejection of this application. And it's a good application because these developments that have been in this neighborhood and elsewhere have been important, not only to the town attempting to meet its statutory goal of affordable housing, but also as a practical matter, providing additional housing inventory of the type we need for people who want it and need it. So we always appreciate your careful consideration of these applications, your time and attention and your volunteer service. And we certainly hope you'll approve this application. And I'll just reserve any opportunity as may be necessary to address any comments that might be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. We'll now open up the public comments. I don't see anybody signed up for chat. I do see Attorney Green. Attorney Green, are you making a presentation tonight?
As a reminder, Mr. Chair, I think Ms. Greco wanted to make some comments to the board.
Yes, she did. Ms. Greco, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Feel free to go forward. If you can just say your address for us, please.
Okay, approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of Beacon Square is where 1 and 3 Beacon Square houses are. There is no adequate parking as it is right now. I would like to see plans including number 1 and 3 Beacon Square, because where I am seeing is very different than the actual street. I'd like to see it included in your plans. Is there any way that I could see that including? Because what I'm seeing is not actually what the street looks like right now. And to put that there, and with 1 to 3 Beacon Square being a ranch on the opposite side, I would really like to see what all of it looks like.
So, Ms. Greco, and for other members of the public who may be here, this is the time for you to make comments to the board, to the commission. The applicant is certainly listening as well. If you have any questions, they go through us, but not directly towards the applicant or any of the presenters. So I think Attorney Fallon has heard what you said, but he's not obligated to say anything at this point until public comment is over.
Can I ask a question of a member of the public?
You can, but it's not something we often do. But if you need clarification, maybe go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, what is Beacon Square used for now? If you're a neighbor, do you have any observations of, is it used for parking? Is it used for, you're talking about 1-3, that's the duplex that's on the left side, that's not part of this project. So
no, but there is no parking as it stands.
What is it used for? Do people park in there?
There's 2 houses there, but if somebody parks on the street, I can't back out of the property. I'd like to know how this is going to happen. I'd like to see the plans including that, so we just don't get written off like we don't exist. I mean, if you try to pull something in like a small trailer, sometimes you can't even do that without having somebody else move cars. And that's just with what's going on right now.
In Beacon Square, you're talking about?
Yes, in Beacon Square. It's a very small circle.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Greco, anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it for now.
May I ask for your address again, please? Just so for the record.
3 Beacon Square. I'm the executrix of that property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to be heard on this?
Yes, Paula Gallo here.
Hi, good evening. You're up next. You can just say your address as well, please.
My name is Paula Gallo. I'm at 23 Beacon View Drive. And unfortunately, I have not been getting the emails from TPZ. So I kind of found out about this public hearing a little late. I would have been able to help the neighbors a little bit more. I haven't gotten emails since October. But be that as it may, you know, I do think that the public hearing should be continued because there should be more people involved in being able to speak their mind about what's really going on with this big building. Um, so the area is too dense already. It's been creating a problem with the schools. I know that they've been busing kids further away. And then, you know, I just was wondering if there was an additional traffic study done by our police department, because I think that that should be done as well to see if it, you know, works with Mr. Galante's within the scope of what he's done. So we have apples to apples from the neighbor's position. And then I wanted to also mention that 1 and 3 are owned by Mr. Kevin Muller, who passed away in November. And, you know, it wasn't on the left side of their drawings. But you know, I believe that it's part of an estate, and I'm not sure how this could go forward without their comments, because his properties are, I don't know what's going on with them. Are they in the court now, or if the executor's been notified? You know, I mean, how does that kind of a situation work? I mean, the owner of that building, 1 and 3, has died, and his heirs may not have any idea and should be given an opportunity to comment. I mean, I really truly think so, respectfully. You know, he was opposed, Mr. Mueller was opposed to this situation. I do know that, but, you know, it's a whole different ballgame now because he's gone. And I don't know what's going on with his will, or, you know, what's going on with that property. I know that there are people living there. And, you know, I find that, you know, because there's such a high concentration of these buildings in the area now, you know, I mean, how is it creating diversity? I don't really understand, you know, how that thinking is, you know, because it doesn't it just puts, you know, more and more concentration in this one area, which is what is happening. You know, Mr. I forgot his last name, but Mr. Turk, they call him Turk. You know, his buildings are expensive. The rents are very expensive. So I don't really understand how this is really, you know, going to be the most affordable thing. I'm a little confused about that. And you know, Pine Tree Apartments is right across the street. It does have families there and elderly, and you know, I do want you also to know that that cars fly down that hill. I know that there have been a couple of cars that have been hit that park in the street. So you know, I'm a little wary about the safety study as well. Sorry about that. I think that's about it. I'd like to see, you know, I would like to see to echo what Ms. Greco said. I'd like to see how that parking area in front of building 1 and 3 would be looking like next to these, you know, gargantuan buildings, excuse me. And I think that's it for my commentary.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm hoping you'll continue this hearing. I'd like to get more of the word out if that's something we can do. And I thank you for your consideration.
I would like to chime in if you don't mind.
I believe if you can just say your name and your address, I think you're up next.
Sure. So my name is Tim Kraseski. I'm a great you know, longtime friend of Kevin's. You know, he's known me since I was like 2 years old, and I'm a little bit familiar with, you know, with everything that's going on over there. And what I'm concerned about is, as far as his property, you know, as far as the property being as far as being you know, de-evaluated, like, so when Turk, builds this project, you know, you know, Kevin's property, isn't going to be worth, what it's worth right now, and that was always Kevin's whole concern about everything, and I could totally understand that, and I just feel terrible, as far as his passing and everything. Like I said, he's been a great friend of mine, but but that was a big concern of Kevin's, as far as his property, being de-evaluated, and I'm a little concerned about that. So now you guys put up, or Turk puts up, this, like all these big units, and then what's left is Kevin's little piece of property. I'm a little concerned about that.
Thank you for your comments. Anything else?
I'm sorry, what?
Thank you for your comments. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, no. I mean, but I think that's pretty concerning,
No, I'm not suggesting otherwise. I just want to make sure that I don't cut you off if you were done. That's all.
And as far as Marian Greco went, as far as as far as seeing the whole blueprint of what's being developed, and and what's going to be left, as far as Kevin's piece of property, after this development, it would be nice to see, as far as how how his tenant is going to be, pulling into their property and this and that, and if there's going to be like a 3-story building there, it's it's a lot. It's a little bit of concerning right there.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else, or any other members of the public that wish to be heard on this application?
I would like to say one more thing. My name is Marianne Greco. I just hope that someone could go out and actually see Beacon Square to see my concern about the buildings and the traffic and the square itself. I'd appreciate it if you could see, because you can't tell from the drawings. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say most commission members view the areas in consideration. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this application?
I see no other members in the chat.
Going once, twice. Now conclude the public comment section. Attorney Fallon?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And the first thing starting out that I'd want to point out, interestingly enough, is 1 and 3 Beacon Square is actually owned by Mr. Parlikalik, who is the principal of the applicant in this particular case. If you go out there, which we would commend you to do, you'll notice that the property is improved with a garage, a substantial driveway, and as the owner of the property, he can certainly confirm that there's never been a problem with regard to on-street parking emanating from 1-3 Beacon Square. We didn't include it in the application because, as pointed out, it's not part of the application. So that's my comment on that. Let me address Ms. Gallo's comment. First of all, this application was duly noticed in accordance with the requirements of the statute. It was published twice in the newspaper. Fairfield, in its diligence, also requires that everyone owning property within, I believe, 500 feet in this zone is to receive and did receive notice of this application. So to come in now and say she wants to help the neighbors, with all due respect, and I don't mean to be pejorative, the neighbors don't need her help. The neighbors are well aware of this application, and everyone has a right to come and speak, as she did and others did tonight. But overall, the neighborhood is quiet here because I don't think there's a great desire to be concerned about this application. She doesn't want to help the neighbors. She might like to try to stir the neighbors up, which would be her right. But the fact of the matter is, this application, just like the one Mr. Fitzpatrick talked to, has been sitting in the queue since I think sometime in August. And to come in here at this time and say, well, I'd like to have this continued because I haven't heard anything since October. Well, that's probably because the application has been pending since August. She also makes the comment that the estate of the deceased should have some voice here. Well, they do. Ms. Greco has identified herself in tonight's proceedings as the executrix of that estate. And she's also identified herself as the executrix of that estate in an email to the zoning department. So there's no question here again in terms of a specious argument by Ms. Gallo that, well, nobody's here to represent the estate. The estate is represented. The executrix, Ms. Greco, has taken the opportunity to speak. 30% of she's worried that these gargantuan buildings, which I thought was another interesting comment, considering the fact that these buildings are 31 feet in height and well under what the zone allows. But she comments that, well, these are very expensive units. Well, depending on whatever the market units may be, 30% of them will be deed restricted for 40 years to the affordable standards, the 80-60 standards I mentioned before. The last speaker talked about concern about the property, the estate property being devalued. Well, that doesn't fit too well with Ms. Gallo's comments that these are going to be very expensive units. It's generally been most people's experience that when a development like this, new construction, carefully designed architecturally, comes to a neighborhood, it uplifts property values in the neighborhood. It doesn't depress them. But in the context of an 8-30G, it doesn't matter. Because one of the citations that I did read to you, but is in the material, is the allegations that the proposed affordable housing development is not consistent with the surrounding neighborhood was found not to be a sufficient basis for denying the application. That's North Haven Opportunities for Affordable Housing versus North Haven P&Z. So it's really an irrelevant consideration, but in fact, it's a bogus consideration because this type of development is going to inure to the benefit of the neighborhood, and that's happened. That's happened with Mr. Parlakalich's other properties in this very neighborhood. So we certainly would like this hearing to be closed tonight. It's been duly noticed. We've done our neighborhood outreach. I think that is somewhat indicative of the fact that we've not had an overwhelming negative response. Ms. Gallo had her notice. She's had an opportunity to speak, which she's fully entitled to. But after the pendency of this hearing and the record that I think we've created in terms of the public safety issues, the fire marshal, the town engineer, et cetera, I think the hearing should close. And we do again thank you for your careful attention.
John,
yes.
I feel like I need to make the one little minor correction is that Turk actually owns number 1. So he owns half of that property. He doesn't own number 3, which is the other half.
Thank you.
Just so that we're clear on the record.
Yes, thank you, Phil. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you as well.
Attorney Fallon, though, the applicant owns the properties at issue, right?
Oh, yes.
Any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? Commissioner Braun. You're on mute, I think.
I'd like to get a little bit more information on what I don't want to do is create a nightmare scenario on Beacon Square. If people cannot get in and out of 1 and 3, I think we need to know that. I don't want to be responsible for approving something, an 8-30G, that could potentially create a nightmare for people trying to get in and out. It looks from the aerial picture that it's a big empty space, but then maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just a small space that people in existing duplexes have room to back out of their unit. I'd like to get a little more information on how that space is actually used. Also, I'm trying to find in the traffic report. I saw in the traffic report that because of the pandemic, speed the speed that cars are going was modeled on the other Beacon View application from a year ago. I can't find it now, but I'd like to clarify that. And if the traffic report is relying on any information from the other Beacon View application that was denied a year ago, I'd like to get information. I could be wrong. That's what I thought I read in the traffic report. So I'd like to keep the hearing to collect a little bit more data.
Well, I would say this. I would say this, Commissioner. I mean, obviously, the commission has the discretion to do whatever they want, but I hope your fellow commissioners would not agree with that and would feel that in the matter of the efficient moving of business, it's not necessary to keep this hearing open. You have every right to go out to the property, to visit the property, to observe anything that you want to observe, so that you'll be prepared in your deliberations. The traffic report speaks for itself. There's nothing external to the traffic report. What we have submitted, and it's a very detailed traffic report. You got a summary of it tonight. It's a very detailed document. That's what we're relying on. You have all the opportunity to look at that. You have the opportunity, if you like, to, through staff, ask for any police department or fire department input you want. But I think the hearing should close tonight because the record is complete.
I'm looking at the traffic report for Beacon Square. I can't see what, I wish some of these applicants, I realize a huge amount of effort is put into this 374-page document, but so much of it is done and not a searchable document. I can't do a word search. I found it in some page that's unnumbered where it says, because of the traffic conditions, we are using information from the 15-21 Beacon View Drive traffic study. I'd like to have that study and any commentary on it incorporated into this hearing. If we are
your staff can certainly give you. That's a matter of record, and your staff can.
If you don't mind,
Sorry.
I would like to finish my question. I'm actually
This is ridiculous.
I'm actually making this question to the chairman of my commission. Okay, I would like to state to my commission member, my fellow commissioners, that if the traffic study is relying on another traffic study from another hearing that was held a year ago, which I believe was denied, it may or may not be on appeal. I haven't really followed it. I would like to have information related to that traffic study brought into this hearing so we can be fully cognizant of it. I know there was conversation on the record about speed, about volume, and there was police observations made and things that had to do with sight line distance, and that all had to do with parking on the street, volume, and speed. So I would like to have more information incorporated into this hearing so I can be fully informed before I render a decision to allow this construction to take place. So I would like to have that information before me. Thank you.
Mr. Wentz, I assume we still have that information and can it be made part of the record?
Yes, I think the report talks about the speed study was done for this report. The only reference made that I can see to the prior study was comparing the volumes that were created for this study to that study, and then an adjustment made because the previous study was prior to COVID.
Attorney Fallon.
Galante can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have that study. But as I'm reading
let me ask just a simple question. Do you have an objection to making the previous traffic report part of the record?
Absolutely not. It is. That's what I was going to say, and I apologize to Commissioner Braun for interrupting her. But I was going to say that just that the traffic report that she referred to is part of the files. You can make it part of the record. I don't think it's particularly relevant but she certainly has every right and should have an opportunity to review it, because basically we're not relying on any aspect of that earlier traffic report. And that was the other point I was trying to make, that this is a self-standing report. The entire analysis and factual basis is there. But to answer your question, it's in the department, and I will stipulate that it can be made a part of the record for anybody who wants to review it.
Thank you. And obviously we'll give it whatever weight we deem appropriate.
Correct.
But I appreciate that so we can kind of cut through it.
And because there was a huge amount of discussion at that prior hearing, I would like more than just the traffic report. I believe there was a police report. There was all kinds of testimony. There might have even been. I'd like to have that all brought into here. If we're going to rely on the old traffic report from another hearing, I'd like to have that before me now so I can hear pros and cons of whatever those observations were.
We're not relying on the other traffic report, Commissioner Braun. We're saying that if you want to review it, it's available.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Commissioner Braun, it's been made part of the record, so I think we're all set. I think. Unless you have any other questions about it, we can review it. It's part of the record. I don't think anything you said is wrong, but you know, it's about 9:40 now. I think if we can just move on as expeditious as we can, it'll be in our interest. What after we close, we need to discuss with Mr. Wick the timing for this application. So, are there any other questions from members of the commission for Mr. Fallon?
I would like to speak again. Tim Krasewski.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Yep. I'm sorry, but the public comment is over. We're now in the applicant's rebuttal. At this time, only commission members may ask questions. Are there any other? Commissioner Francis.
Quick question. There are trash chutes in each of these buildings.
It's Phil Cerrone. So the answer to your question is no, they're single dwelling units, and similar to the other two projects that Turk owns in the neighborhood, he's arranged on the other projects and will arrange on this project that everybody will have garbage cans in their garage. The garbage men will come to every single individual units and pick up their garbage cans and their recycling bins.
And I really was asking about truck traffic, you know, with moving trucks in and out and the garbage trucks. That's all handled in your width of your roadways.
Yeah, I mean, on this project, you know, Beacon Square is a public road, and so the garbage truck will park on Beacon Square, kind of similar to they do in my neighborhood in Fairfield, where they park 3 doors down and they just wheel they come up to your house and they take the garbage and put it into a bigger container and then wheel it to the garbage truck. And now with these units and the other 21 that he owns, he's got a very good relationship with the trash people over there.
Okay. And the Amazon, you had a lobby though for package delivery, right?
Well, again, it's the same as your home. Everybody's got their own vestibule and their own front door. These are basically 26 single family homes. So there's not a common lobby because there's no common space. Nobody has joint space with anybody else. Everybody's got their own single family home. So the package delivery will be the same it is at your house. They don't probably come, maybe they come in your front door, maybe some people will allow them in their front door, but for the most part, packages will be dropped at the front door. It's exactly the same as a single family home.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Anybody, please put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. Any other final questions from the commission? So with that, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Mr. Wendt, if you can please go through the timing for this application so we all know when this needs to be decided.
Sorry, what was that last statement you said?
As I understand it, there is considering this has been in a queue for so long, we have a deadline for this deciding this application.
That's correct. It has to be decided no later than our first meeting in January, which I believe is the hang on a second, which is the 11th. We do have again, and we do have the availability of adding a meeting to the calendar on the 28th of this month if you feel like it may take more than one meeting to deliberate and decide on this. If we have the meeting on the 28th, we can certainly have this as a matter for discussion. If we're not having that meeting on the 28th, then you would be deciding it on the following meeting, or the next regularly scheduled meeting, which would be the 11th, and you would have to decide on that date. So if you think you want more deliberation time, I would suggest we consider having that on the 28th. If you think the commission will be comfortable to do it in one sitting, so to speak, then we can push that to the 11th of January, but I will leave that to your discretion.
Is that something we can discuss now, or is there something we need to put on the calendar to discuss, or can we just have this informal discussion now?
Well, if we're just going to have the meeting for an administrative session, we don't have to determine that at this moment. If we are going to consider having that meeting and maybe do perhaps open another public hearing for other applications besides this, we would have to publish that by tomorrow. But I don't think, so it's really a question of whether you think you'll need more than one administrative session of the commission to make a determination on this application.
Okay. I mean, we can speak to the rest of the commission members. I think for an application like this, one sitting is sufficient compared to what we've done in the past. I don't, to me, adding the extra time in December, I don't think we're going to need 2 days to discuss it, or 2 sessions to discuss it. That's just my thought. Commissioner Brayman, any thoughts as vice?
I concur.
Any other, let me ask this, dissenting thoughts? Is everybody comfortable having this at the first meeting in January, knowing we have to make a decision then? You're not going to have the opportunity to, essentially, to table for more consideration. I'm going to infer silence as agreements, unless somebody says otherwise. Yeah, okay. Yeah, like I said, I think considering the application, considering what we've done in the past, I think one session is more than sufficient. Should an emergency come up, we can reach out to the applicant, but I just don't see that in the normal course that we need more than one session. Okay.
Of course, Mr. Chairman, should any members have any questions or desire any additional information after tonight between now and that meeting, please avail yourselves of myself or Emily. We can provide you with any additional information from the file that you might need.
Mr. Wendt, if you can please circulate the previous traffic report from Beacon. Now that it's part of the record, it should go out to everybody. And yeah, this is just a
Yep, we can absolutely do that. We likely have it already posted, I believe, from the previous application, but if not, we'll certainly send it to you directly, if not through a web link, but we'll take care of that tomorrow.
okay. And again, just the I guess the professional warning, so to speak, that we have to have a decision on the next time. So please prepare accordingly. And as I said, I don't think that should be a problem. With that, that was the last point of discussion. I will close the hearing and have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take care, everyone.